Oh, shalom. Technical difficulties. Let's get right back to it. All right, there we go. Shalom. I am Brother Isaiah, also known as Mr. Blaktastic or Yeshaya. Welcome, beloved. I'm a born again Messianic Israelite follower of Adonai Yeshua HaMashiach, also known as the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe Almighty Yahweh is awakening a remnant of scattered Israel as dry bones in a valley to their identity as natural descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as part of the promised seed of faith. I believe the greater portion of this awakening remnant of Israel are Negro, slave, and immigrant descendants in the Western world. I believe this awakening is to bring together Israelite and Gentile believers as one in Christ to fulfill Scripture before the imminent return of Christ to reign on earth and before the final judgment. It is my sincere prayer that through the ministry of the Scriptures by the Holy Spirit, I may serve my generation as a prophetic voice to awaken Israel and all in need of salvation through the gospel of Yeshua Mashiach. On this platform, I will be teaching or discussing scripture, history, and other relevant issues. I pray you receive insight, inspiration, and faith by the word in the name of Adonai Yeshua. Blessings and peace to all of you that are gathered here. Let's pray real quick because I got a feeling tonight going to be a doozy, and we don't know what chain reaction could occur or happen as a result of the things that we discuss here on tonight. Heavenly Father, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our dear Lord and precious Savior, we come before you just to thank you once again for another day. We bless you for life, health, and strength. And we ask that you would forgive all of our sins and let your righteousness be our covering. Hallelujah. And our propitiation as we come before you boldly to the throne of grace, seeking help in our time of need. Truly, Father, the world is in a dark hour, and it's only through your light that men and women can find their way to salvation as you so call, lead, and guide them. We ask you to help us, Father. Let everything function perfectly on tonight. Father, let there be no flesh to glory in thy sight, but you get the glory for all things said and done. And we pray that something is said or done here through us as we endeavor to be used as your instrument for tonight, Father, to help capture or recapture and win souls out of the kingdom of darkness and into the precious kingdom of light. In the name of your dear and precious Son, our Lord and Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray. Amen. All right. Can everybody hear me? All right. If you can hear me real good, give me a one in the chat. It's been a long time since I've been on here. Been a minute now. Had to take some time away, longer than I expected. But we are back and in full effect. And tonight, before we get started, because we got several things that we're going to do, we're going to make sure we make this fair use disclaimer. So this presentation may contain copyrighted material of which the use has not been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. I am making such material available for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research, and etc. I believe this constitutes a fair use of any such copyrighted materials as provided for in Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Law in accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. The material in this presentation is distributed without profit to those interested in this information for research and educational purposes. So what are we getting in here on tonight? Transmania. Yeah, that's what we're talking about tonight. Transmania. The world, at least, let me not say the world. That's a little bit too broad. I think sometimes we, I used to tell my children, if the world you see is as big as the world is, then your world is small indeed. And I think sometimes we think that what's happening in our corner of the world is happening everywhere in the world. But I will say in America or the Western world, the Eurocentric world in particular, from Europe or what we call across the pond to the Americas and all parts relevant, we seem to be going through a period of transmania. All right, transmania. That means people have gone crazy. They have lost their minds for transmania, and it's gotten to the point. It's at a boiling point. It's actually boiling over. And one of the reasons that we have to have discussions like this now is because if we don't, when we wake up, the world that we went to sleep to will not be the one we wake up to. And we'll be wondering what happened. And it's my job as a messenger, as it is that of others with the same calling, to ring the alarm, to cry loud and spare not. And so the light has to be shined on this, in particular, to the Israelite community and to the church community, because we do have a good mix of people that will probably be listening here on tonight from both the Israelite community as well as your traditional Christian community. And too often, we're very nonchalant in how we approach these particular situations. And we have a tendency to be aware of things, but probably not to the degree that we should be. And I mean, to really be educated on the things. And again, let me say this: shalom and blessings to all those that are gathering here. I didn't go through the list of names in the chat and call everybody out one by one, but I see you, and I'm so glad that you're still here with me. And if you haven't already, please do me a favor. Go ahead and hit the like. And if you haven't subscribed, and then share this video so that others may also benefit from the information that's going to be shared here on tonight. And then for those that are wondering too about the Q&A that I promised coming out of the series concerning the Godhead, we will also schedule that and do that hopefully this week. But tonight we got to get into this, okay? Because while oftentimes, like I said, you know, we are, Kimberly said those are her foretels too, all right? We are aware of things. We have a tendency to blow or brush too much off. And that's because we're oftentimes distracted by things that are far less important. And it's our lack of awareness that is oftentimes taken advantage of by those who are pushing these types of agendas. Even now, you know, now I'm not aware of anything else that may be going on, but I'm pretty sure there's so many different choices of things that are currently available from others who may be live on YouTube or Facebook or wherever the case may be. And it can be about a variety of topics, Clubhouse and all these different things. But a lot of this stuff that is probably being discussed are things that we hear on a regular basis, which amount to really ego jousting and people debating to try to see who's more superior about topics that we should actually be learning and teaching about so that we can grow, develop, you know, and also edify one another. But in the Bible believing community, we have been distracted as of late into these superiority contests, which are not benefiting us at all. And where it concerns our spirituality, our holiness, and all of these other types of things that are supposed to be helping us prepare to meet our Savior and to go to heaven, you know, we're dropping the ball in a lot of areas. And that's because people are trying to prove themselves in areas that don't make a difference. In the meanwhile, the enemy, Satan, is watching all of this. And he and his minions are working overtime to bring about his plan and to undermine the people of the true and the living God. And so it's going to require us to get back on what's called a sniper focus or laser focus, where we really dial in and understand that these are the last of the last days. And shalom and blessings. Somebody said, Kimberly Wilson from Ohio, bless you, beloved. Good to meet you. Glad to see you here with us. And I see others that are in there as well. And I'm trying to see. She's one of our new people that are joining us. So I'm glad to have her. Let me see. Let me just try to get some of these names through. And I'm going to go back into what I'm saying. But I saw my sister Shirley Greer was in here. She was the first one. Bless you, my brother Errol Spike. Stephanie M. Bless you. Ruha. Bless you, beloved. Denise Jones. My brother Ernest Higgs. My big sis Angie Love, the prayer warrior extraordinaire. Love you, sis. Sister Regina. Good to see you. Denise Jones. All right. Who else? Hey, Juania. Good to see you. Who else we got in here? Yolanda. Good to see you. Malka. Bless you, beloved. Big Red, my brother. And Brew Queen, there she is. There's another watch woman on the wall. Stephanie M. Some of these names I may be repeating, y'all, okay? You know. But I'm trying to make sure I don't miss people. Sister Trini joining us on Facebook. My brother, my cousin, Charles West. All right. And if there's anyone that I may have missed or overlooked, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. And y'all see I have my little name tag on here. Normally I would have my name up there. Sister Sheila, there she is, keeping us healthy. All right, but you know, I changed it just for the purposes of this show. But in any event, we can find ourselves being distracted because, like I said, while we're focusing on some of these other things or majoring in the minors, others are pushing an agenda that is undermining our way of living. Okay? And Brew Queen said, brother, please have your water ready. Ta-da! I got it. All right, I got it. So others are undermining our way of living altogether, and they're driving wedges where there's already gaps. And so that means that we got to seal up the gap. Bless you, Just Reese. Good to see you joining us. So that means that there's areas that we got to pay more attention to and seal up. If not, you're going to wake up and find the world that you went to sleep to, like I said, different than the one you wake up to. And right now, this is happening. I see no other groups more aggressive than the LGBT community in terms of pushing their ideology. And in fact, let me say this, because I want to make this distinction here on tonight. The LGBTQ, for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and now we have queer, and a bunch of other stuff they keep adding. The one letter they haven't added yet is the P, because that stands for pedophile. But it's already within the alphabet soup, so to speak. They're just not using it. However, we do know that that is the goal of a lot of these lettered groups. Now, is everyone a pedophile? No, certainly not. But the advent, I would say, of all of these different alphabet gangs is the T and the Q. And what I've learned from discussions with other people in that community is that they're not all as cohesive as people think. In fact, as it was told to me, they don't even know who came up with putting those letters together to make it appear as if they are all cohesive or in agreement. And the ones that really schooled me were some ladies who prefer to stay anonymous, but were actually some lesbian ladies who said that we totally are against the transgender and queer ideology, but you know, they are more or less a Trojan horse. So what you have is you have far left liberals who have made it appear as if they're all together as one solid community. And then what happens is anyone within that whole alphabet system or whatever, if you voice dissent, they will bully you and pressure you until you either conform or you're expelled or castigated and ostracized from the group. And I thought that was interesting because I've always looked at, from the perspective of Black empowerment and civil rights, I've always looked at the homosexual community or movement, LG, as they call LGBT now, as being a Trojan horse itself that undermined civil rights for Black people in particular. And that's because it forced people of a particular persuasion to choose between their cultural Blackness and their sexual preference. And what we've seen is the sexual preference, or what some call sexual orientation, has now become the dominant thing. So all the gains that were accomplished and made in the civil rights era and were supposed to benefit Black people as a community, it hasn't really benefited Black people at all, because a Trojan horse, now known as the LGBT, came in and undermined Black people to where the gains that were, the things that were intended for people based on their ethnicity and their culture, are now being prioritized for people based on sexual preference or orientation. And so this is what we're seeing. And then the interesting thing is, now to them, the same thing is being done by people within their own group. The transgender and queer ideologies are undermining, in particular, the gains and the rights achieved by women who fought for women's rights. And so the lesbian women that I talked to, what they explained it like this: we're women who want to be women. We just don't want to be with a man. But we love men, and we're not hyperfeminists. And I'm going to explain that to you also, hyperfeminism, because there's a difference between the original intent of feminism versus what has now become hyperfeminism, which now dominates that whole women's right movement. What they wanted was equality for women, but they wanted to be able to feel like they had their own lane within women's groups. So they're lesbians, and I'm not condoning any of this when it's explaining it. So they're lesbians, but they're still women. They're still ladies. Even the ones that are, more butchy as people, are more masculine. In other words, they don't want to be men at all. All right? They just want to be women and have their relationships among women like that, but they're not necessarily trying to infringe on anything involving men or take anything from men. They're trying to get what's right for women. With that, I understand. The original intent or goal of feminism was equality and safe spaces for women. That was the original goal. Feminism got hijacked. See, by definition, if you're a person that believes that women deserve equal pay and equal treatment in the workspace and government and things of that sort, just by simple definition, you would be considered a feminist. Even if you were a man, you're not feminine. It just means you believe in what's right. However, as with all things, especially concerning this particular community, they co-opt other ideas, words, and philosophies, and then they pervert it and convert it to their own use. So feminism, which was the fight for equality, just like civil rights was the fight for equality for people of color or Black people, then gets perverted and corrupted into hyperfeminism. Hyperfeminism is not about equality, it's about female dominance. This is where you really see, from a religious or spiritual aspect, that spirit of Jezebel and Athaliah now really begin to come into the movement and expose the devil in the details all along. Because the hyperfeminist doesn't want equality, they want dominance. And what happened was the hyperfeminist was a Trojan horse to the feminists, and now the trans and queer communities have become a Trojan horse to the hyper-feminists. The seeds of its own destruction is within itself. One group devours another, because whereas you had women fighting for women's rights and equality, now the transgenders come along and it's predominantly men wanting to be women. That's why it's such an issue, because women wanting to be men are not the threat to men that they are in reverse. And the reason why is because men have never had to fight for men's rights or any of those things, because for the majority of our human existence, we've all lived in a male-dominated society. Now in the West, we're now in a gynocentric society. That means that everything is now slanted toward the woman and toward hyperfeminism, and now towards this whole transgender queer thing is where they're trying to take it. So we've gotten closer and closer to the edge, to where we're about to fall off the ledge altogether and just drown in this madness. And as Yolanda said, Yah is not the author of confusion. So that means that he ain't create none of this mess, nor does he endorse it, neither is he behind it. All right? So who's doing this? Well, of course, the devil is in the details. We know that Satan goes about as a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour, but he goes about as a roaring lion because he's really a snake. He's a serpent. Lions claw, rend, and tear and chew their food. Serpents restrict, choke the life out, or poison the thing and then swallow it whole. And so Satan's whole goal is to devour and swallow whole whatever it is he has poisoned and then squeezed the life out of with his own agenda. And men, evil men, which includes women, have allowed this because of their sins and their rebellion against the Most High. And we're seeing it happen right before our very eyes. So the transgender and queer agendas would erase womanhood by blurring the line and making your sex or your gender a non-factor. Now, sex is biological. And what you'll hear is people oftentimes say things like, well, it's not right for a person to think in their mind that they're this or to know that they're that and have to acquiesce to their assigned sex. First of all, again, the usage of terms, you got to be very careful with these people because they become masters of word manipulation. All right? Masters of word manipulation. And this is what I said. This particular community or movement has co-opted words for a couple centuries now. And words that once had a harmless meaning that everyone could use have now almost become exclusively associated with them. Just the term gay. If you woke up happy, enjoying life with a positive attitude and a smile on your face, guess what you are? You're gay. Now, that's the classic definition of the term. But as a man, especially as a black man living in Atlanta, I can't go outside and start talking to folks and say, hey, how you doing today? Hey, how you feel, man? Man, I feel gay, man. I sure enough, I feel very gay, brother. You can't go out and do that. You can't do that nowhere in America no more. You can't do that nowhere in the West. Almost nowhere in the world. Because they co-opted that word and corrupted it. You know what? Gay is supposed to be happy-go-lucky, carefree, positive, living life to the utmost, enjoyment, free, carefree. But they took that word, or somebody co-opted the word because it's a psychological thing. It's word association. It's a game. I take this word and I connect it to myself, and I'm living a false lifestyle. But as I continue to use this word and you associate it with me, you begin to associate it with my lifestyle, and I disarm you subtly. So now that word becomes my word. And on a subconscious level, I want you to think of a homosexual as a carefree, happy-go-lucky person, positive and enjoying life. And that's how you end up with the terminology for homosexuals who were once, at one time, almost universally recognized as sodomites after Sodom and Gomorrah. But as they grew and maneuvered into positions of power behind the scene, they were able to affect and influence policy and society and begin to change or socially engineer the word association and the way people thought. So they went from being that, which everyone knew, there was nothing positive about being called a sodomite. All right? There was nothing positive about being called a homosexual. They don't like that, but that's the lifestyle. Whether you're lesbian or gay, you're homosexual. That means you desire sexual relationships with one particular, or with your same sex. That's a homosexual. That's just a scientific classic definition. There should be no offense to that, but most don't want to be known by that, even though that's the proper definition for lesbian or gay men. Gay is not the actual definition. It's a misnomer meant to fool you into socially and subliminally accepting this lifestyle as harmless. And so there's nothing harmless about it. Fast forward, because what I'm talking about a lot here, because we got some video clips and things that we're going to go through, and I'm going to show you some things that you need to see. Fast forward, and you start to hear other terms now. Like I said, they say they're calling heterosexual people or straight people cis. Notice this: the people that are always trying to change the way you see the world and influence your worldview are the ones who always create definitions to redefine things. The gender or sex you're born with, is now assigned. That's not true. Gender fluidity is a total and complete lie. Fluidity means to be able to transform or change with relative ease. If gender fluidity was true, then that means that each of us could change our sex at any time. So we could go from being a male to a woman just almost at a thought. You could be a man on Monday and a woman on Tuesday. You could celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day as both sexes, because you could just relatively easily change from one to the other. But when you got to get your sex changed surgically or chemically and all of these other things, you're rebelling against your natural biology. This is not your assigned sex. When a baby is born, the doctor doesn't assign them a sex. He identifies the sex that the Most High gave them. Your sex is not assigned, it's identified. It's determined, hallelujah, without your assistance in the womb. All right? Your chromosomal makeup is determined by your creator. Now, if people hear me talking like this and say, oh, he's doing all that religious talk, this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, I'm doing that religious talk. I'm doing that religious talk to people who not only are in denial of their naturally given and biological sex, but in the creator of the universe who gave you the sex. And this is what I'm saying. The whole issue or thing or problem with this whole transmania and LGBT alphabet soup is an erasure of the Most High from our moral conscience. And this is why you continue to see these attacks and these things. And think about this. The attacks are aimed at younger and younger audiences. Aimed at younger and younger audiences. In fact, let me show y'all something. They're so sneaky and subliminal with it that right now, if you're on Facebook, here's what you will see if you go into your emojis. All right? They're pushing this hard. And I'm surprised at this because Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, which is now known as Meta, is supposedly a conservative. And most conservatives are in disagreement with this particular lifestyle or view, but they're also capitalists and greedy. So whatever is going to pay them, they're going to go with it. So I don't doubt that he has quite a large staff of probably very liberal-minded people who push for this. And now on your Facebook profile, on your Instagram page, perhaps maybe even on your Twitter, I don't know which way that's going to go now that Elon Musk owns it. But however that goes, you're probably going to see these emojis because they're pushing this lie that men can get pregnant. And they're pushing it all over the place. Let me tell you something. Any so-called man that's pregnant is a woman. If a trans woman was a woman, then they wouldn't need to be called a trans woman to represent transitioning from a he to a she. The fact that you are a trans anything mean that what you're supposedly transitioning to is not who you really are. So again, it's a lie. It's a lie. But it's a lie that's being pumped out on a regular basis, and you have these large media outlets like Disney, who's leading the way, Warner Brothers, and probably the most wicked of all the news stations, in my opinion, is MSNBC, or just NBC, period, because they're the parent company of it. And I'm going to show you a news clip here from NBC, but MSNBC is the most left liberal-leaning channel or station on. You know, and I know that people say, well, what about Fox? Well, Fox is right-leaning, and yeah, they crazy too. But at least they seem to have more morals than MSNBC. MSNBC got the spirit of Jezebel and her daughter Athaliah all throughout it. You got a bunch of effeminate men who refuse to be men and cower in the face of a bunch of domineering, masculine Jezebel women. And they promote this ideology and a lot of these new age esoteric views. They're antichrist in their view, and you see it throughout a lot of their promotion. And Disney is probably the most wicked company on earth right now. Everything that Disney now buys, they corrupt, and they do it with a quickness. They lure you in like they did with all the Marvel stuff. Oh, I grew up reading comic books. I loved all that stuff. Loved all those comic book superheroes. And when they first came out with their first phase and second phase, they were doing great. But it was a setup to get you interested in the product so that they could hit you with what they're hitting you with now. So when they go into the third and fourth phase, now they start to bring out their real agenda. And you start to see what's really happening. There was an issue with the Black Panther movie where they were trying to pressure the director, Ryan Coogler, to create a lesbian love scene or side story amongst the Dora Milaje, who are the bodyguards for the Black Panther, the female bodyguards. But he decided to not go that route and leave that out because it wasn't necessary to the story. That's the other thing. We don't need all these love scenes in a lot of these movies. It doesn't drive the story at all. You don't need all these love scenes and smooching and things in a lot of these stories. The new Buzz Lightyear movie, which just flopped over the weekend, same-sex kiss between two women. Now, here's something I want to point out, because there's something that you also need to know about that. Buzz Lightyear, an animated show, primarily made for children, but which any of us who saw the Toy Story movies, we enjoyed those. So a lot of adults wanted to see it too. Think about this. They got rid of the original voice of Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen, because Tim Allen don't agree with that. And so they substituted him for the actor that played Captain America, because they knew they were going to put this same-sex kiss in there. Now, 14 countries have banned the movie because of this. And they depicted one of the animated black female characters performing this same-sex kiss. When Disney considers what they consider groundbreaking moments for the LGBT community in particular, I've noticed that they always use black people to push it. In Marvel's Eternals, which was another flop, because people got more sense than a lot of times folks think. They put the first male gay couple into a Marvel movie or into their movies, and they celebrated them kissing live on screen. And one of the guys who was one of the participants, I remember he made some stupid statement like, "Oh, this is going to save lives." You kissing another man is saving lives? Really? But this is how pompous and arrogant people think of that particular lifestyle, and this is the way that they're pushing it, as if we really need it. We've done pretty good since the Garden of Eden without it. Why should it dominate everything now? I saw a statistic that said that the actual trans community is about 1% of the population, and the entirety of the LGBT community is no more than somewhere between 3 to 10%. Those numbers could be higher or lower, but I don't think it's more than 10%. So that means that they're a minority within a minority. In fact, they may be even smaller than what's projected, because when you want to project yourself, just like these animals that blow themselves up and make themselves bigger than what they actually are, this is what you do. So when you control media, you can give the portrayal that you're bigger than what you are to put more pressure on the masses to conform to you as a small minority that happens to have power in high places. Doesn't this sound like the Bible? Spiritual wickedness in high places. So when you get power with people in positions of authority, you can push your agenda on the masses, even though you're far outnumbered as a minority among minorities. And this is what you have. And you're exactly right, Ruhumah. Babylon is full of confusion. And those 14 countries that it's interesting. Let me tell you, Disney is such a hypocritical company, because to please China, when they were doing the Star Wars remakes, they took the black dude off the poster. They took the black guy off the poster. So all this stuff about Disney believes in people, stands up for people, is a lie. They are just as much a part of the beast as any of these other companies. All right. Bless you, Kimberly. Yeah, those are my pronouns for this show. So it's just as much a beast, a part of the beast, as anything else. But I noticed one of the things about it is, like I said, on a lot of your shows, even on Amazon, they retold Cinderella. And you know what they did? They got a black man to play the fairy godmother. So we got a queer or gay or trans, whatever it was, black man to play the fairy godmother. They retold the story of the Battle of Troy on Netflix. They made Achilles a black man and his companion a black dude, and then they had this real explicit homosexual love scene between the two. I mean, they were getting it in for real, deep dive, as if that was necessary to tell the story. if you look at a lot of these shows, the portrayal of the black man in particular is something that should stand out to you. And I've noticed this, the attacks against men is interesting. Because like I said, hyperfeminism isn't about equality, it's about dominance. But the hyperfeminists of the LGBTQ community is the ones that are pushing a lot of this. And a lot of them are white supremacists. Now, y'all know everybody's not a white supremacist. Everybody's not a racist. We got brothers and sisters in Christ that are all different colors. But you do have this element of people in the world that had these different ideologies and ways they view and see things, and they see themselves as superior to other people. And in the Western world, which has a legacy built on colonialism and racism that we still haven't healed from because we won't admit it, this is still a problem that hides behind the scenes. And so you got to ask yourself, why would they target and use black men in particular in this way? Because it makes the black man less desirable. It makes him more effeminate and therefore making him less threatening. And it minimizes him even more. It isolates black women more. And when you see the black woman without the man, and she's always put in a position of strength or power, it fosters that ideology that a black woman don't need a man, but not just any man, she don't need a black man. So black families are being fed a subtle sociological terroristic attack through entertainment and media, and you're seeing this. Now, again, I'm not a person I don't share some of the views of other people when it comes to interracial relationships. I think you should be with who you love and you should be happy for the time you have here on earth. However, I can't ignore the systematic attack against the black community when it comes to the rebuilding of the black family, which definitely needs a lot of attention. But not only, and I was joking with a friend of mine concerning white men, because I've seen this too. White men, it's not cool to you can't be a white man anymore in America. And I know some people have a problem with what I'm getting ready to say, but just look at what's going on. White men are the poster child of what they call patriarchy, mansplaining, and everything negative. So white heroes, even the true historical figures, like in that old Vikings miniseries they have on Netflix, are replaced. And sometimes even their gender is changed. Look at some of the most recent Marvel movies. They actually changed entire characters into women to get rid of white men. So the white men in trouble now. Now they know how we feel. And I mean, it's I'm just like, wow. You know, you start explaining these things to people and they just not paying attention. I'm telling y'all, like I said, we ain't even got to the good stuff yet. I'm just talking right now. But all of these different things have been done, and they're being done systematically and strategically. And so, you know, my white friends, man, we be laughing. I'd be like, man, y'all are almost an endangered species now. It ain't cool to be a white guy no more. You know, you better go get some people be bleaching their skin. Y'all better dark yourselves up. You might as well be one of us. Because it ain't cool to be a white man. This is what we're seeing in the country. You know, and Yolanda, that's a good question. Why are they afraid of a strong black family? It's rooted in racism. It's rooted in racism. Because as much as these people claim to be free-minded, free livers, and free thinkers, a lot of your liberals on your left are racist, and far more racist than the conservatives on the right. Malcolm X said it like this. He said that the liberal, matter of fact, shoot, let me see if I can pull up what Malcolm X said and show you the quote of what he said about the liberal. being far more dangerous to black people. Let me see if I can share my screen with y'all. On this right here, because I'm gonna show y'all some stuff. So y'all can see that. So Brother Malcolm, he said this. This is my Twitter page. He said the white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And then you see my comments on the right side of the screen where I say, and I've been saying this for 20 years, dear Black Americans, the liberal left and Democrats are not for you, but only use you. Abandon them and choose you over them instead of remaining under them as they betray and continue to marginalize you while pacifying you with tokenism. Supporting them is a betrayal of yourself. And it is. The Democratic Party has not been for Black people since Black people started being for them. That's just the truth of the matter. They only care about your vote to keep them in power. They don't care about empowering you to achieve equality and to live in this nation as a citizen with all the rights and privileges that you should have. That's not their agenda. It never has been. All right. And they've been milking us for over 50 years now. And one of the reasons that Black families, again, are a threat is because they bring stability to a community, and Black people have shown that collectively, when we work together, we always build something awesome. All you got to do is research the history of the empires of Africa and throughout the Middle East, Asia, where Black people are. Look at what happened after slavery. We recovered so fast, it scared the racists who immediately began to institute Jim Crow laws to set us back and take back the gains that we had made. When we were released from slavery, when our ancestors were released from slavery, they were given nothing, nowhere to go. So a lot of them, you all know, we've read the slave narratives here on this channel. They had nowhere to go. So some of them went back to working for their masters, who now became their employers, but they worked their ways off those plantations all the time into better situations. And we had senators and congressmen, but Jim Crow came in and undid all of that. And then we went through over 100 years of that to set us back, really, which was slavery 2.0. And so that's what you saw. All right. And so in any event, a lot of what we're seeing now, again, is the culmination of the degradation and erosion of morality in the West, in America in particular, in Great Britain, all over throughout Europe. Europe is almost an atheistic continent at this point. We see our neighbor to the north, Canada. They have no morality. They'll put you in jail for speaking out against LGBT people. You can be arrested for certain things that you say. So Canada literally is almost like having thought police up there. So you have to be careful now of what you say and do. And then other peoples in the world, like those in South and Central America and Africa and the Caribbean, well, they're not having it, but they're being pressured by these, again, European nations and the United States to adopt and accept it. And the United States themselves, we're in a civil war amongst ourselves about our morality. And it seems like it's a losing battle when you see how overwhelming a lot of what we're seeing coming out of the left, because the majority of people in this country, I venture to say, are actually more liberal than they are conservative. However, Black and Hispanic folks are largely conservative. If Republicans cared more about racism instead of denying it to act like it didn't exist, they would win Black and Hispanic votes back to their party. But it's that aspect of their party that keeps a lot of them away, and it's just the lack of acknowledgement that there is an issue or a problem, or else they'd have a lot of Black folks registered as Republican that would stop voting Democrat. But we've been voting Democrat. If a lot of us have been voting Democrat so long, we don't even know why we keep voting that way, and we keep getting nothing for it. And so it's just insane to me. And the Democrats keep pushing the alphabet soup on you. And this is what you get. And like I said, all these different things have been co-opted. The term gay, look at that. The rainbow, which was given by the Most High as a sign of the covenant, co-opted. Now you see somebody with a rainbow, you think gay. You don't think God, you think gay. You're supposed to think of the greatness of the Most High, his covenant. But they co-opted the rainbow. And now you think gay. No more rainbow shirts for you, straight people. You can't do it. You can't go out and say, hey, I feel gay today. Because why? Somebody's going to say, ooh, you're a homosexual. So even your vocabulary has been changed, and they're challenging it again with these pronouns. They're challenging it again, and you're seeing all of these various different things that are happening. So I want to show y'all, I want to share some videos here. There are some things
saying that kids isn't kid friendly. I'm saying that kids and
there are some videos that I want to show you guys. Let me try to stop this one from talking. There's a website, or there's a Twitter page called the Libs of TikTok, and it's going to expose some of these things. And I'm going to give you a few scriptures too before we close out tonight. But I want to show y'all some things, and I want you to see for yourself. Because there's too many things that we majoring in the minors, and the enemy is doing his worst. He's doing his worst, or his best at doing his worst. And we sit up here complaining about frivolous things while all these other things are happening to us and are affecting the generation to come. And you can't ignore this anymore. The only way that you're going to overcome and defeat these things is you have to be aware of it, and you have to take a stand against it, or else it's going to overcome you, because they're very aggressive. All right, so listen at this.
A totally fine way. There's a nuance here that making an event kid-friendly doesn't mean sanitizing it, aka taking something like kink out of Pride. Making Pride kid-friendly is not the same thing as sanitizing Pride.
Now, y'all hear that? She wants to make Pride kid-friendly. That's what she wants to do. She wants to make Pride kid-friendly by taking the kink out of it. So that means that Pride has kink in it. So you can't separate the homosexual lifestyle from the act of sex itself. So this thing has always been literally about sex. They say, well, no, it's about love. It couldn't be. Because the basis of who and what they want to love is always sexual. You can't build a family with two men because they can't procreate. Two women can't procreate. All they can do is engage in illicit sex. But this is what she's saying. Take the kink out. The Trojan horse, like I told you. Listen.
Making a Pride event kid-friendly, or I prefer kid-safe, is about making sure we're including and putting kid and youth voices and including them in Pride and particularly any justice spaces. Kids and youth voices are vital to justice movements because they are a vulnerable and marginalized group on their own.
Kids and youth voices are vital. So they want the children. Why do they want the children? The same reason that the devil wanted to destroy Yeshua when he was a child. Because they're at their most harmless and impressionable state. And they need someone else to protect them. like their parents. And sadly, many parents are not protecting their children. They're offering their children up as sacrifices to this satanic and demonic movement. Let's look at some more. Let's listen at this.
Today on the last day, I finally decided to come out to my kids. And my kids are older, they're 4 and 5. And the way that I did it is just read them a book about this teddy bear that kind of comes out as a trans girl. And it's really nice and it's very simple. They understood it right away. I think what made me cry the most was that afterwards, like, I kind of looked.
Now, this is a preschool teacher. This is a biological male that is now transitioning to becoming a woman. And he is so confusing, is teaching 4-year-olds and having an emotional moment about coming out to a class of 4-year-old children. Now, I want you to understand something. The 4-year-olds basically are her prisoners, more or less, because they're a captive audience. They're in a room, isolated with an adult who has the oversight or supervision over them. And these are 4-year-olds. They can't write, they can't read yet. The brains are very much still in development and will continue to develop for quite some time before they're mature. And children are so forgiving, loving, impressionable, and honest. It's easy to sell them almost anything. That's why kids believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and just about anything else you tell them. So this right here that's being done, this is what I consider to be low-key pedophilia. Because here's an adult considering this some kind of great moment to come out to 4-year-old children that are not his children, but someone else's children, to shape their worldview. Listen at this.
Looked at them and there was just this silence in the room, and I just thought, like, oh my God, now they see me as a totally different person. And before this, they loved me. I was such one of their favorite teachers, and it felt so good to have that. And I think that's one of the biggest fears I had, is that as soon as they found out about me, they would lose all love for me. And then one of my kids breaks the silence, and she gets up and she just is like, she just hugs me. And she's just like, everyone give Ruti a hug. And they all came and they gave me a hug. And she was just like, we love you. Like, we love you so much. And it made me really emotional. And it was, I think, one of the biggest moments in my transition where I truly felt like at peace with who I am, and that, like, even kids can understand it. And even kids.
No, kids don't understand this. They don't. And this is the thing. Kids absolutely don't understand this. And this is an adult taking advantage of children in a vulnerable position who have absolutely no comprehension of what they're being presented with. This is mental molestation, because it's social engineering and conditioning of a child in preparation for adulthood to induct them into this lifestyle. In other words, we prepping your child. We're prepping them for what's coming later. There's no fire to Molech or Marduk. But this is definitely child sacrifice going on. You're exactly right, Ivy. Trying to get acceptance from a 4-year-old. Let's look at some more stuff. Like I said, you got people up here we're gonna go through all this, repeal the Second Amendment. I'll get a whole nother show about that. The Second Amendment better stay in place, or I guarantee you're gonna be out of place. Okay. Here's a good one. Let's listen at this.
First of all, if you think pronouns don't have a place in the classroom, you clearly don't understand grammar. But there's 2 problems with not asking pronouns to everybody. First, it puts the pressure on the child or teen to come up to a teacher who they may not feel is a safe adult yet and say they don't use their assigned at birth pronouns. And second, it then creates the
Now listen at this. You hear what she said? This is what I said. That you got to listen to how they tamper with language. You start hearing this word a lot, assigned, because they're trying to create the ideal or image that your biological sex is not, in other words, something's wrong with God, the Almighty, the Elohim, the I am that I am. You have the authority to usurp or challenge his decision for what he made you. There's a scripture that says, shall the thing made say to its maker, what have you made? Yet, that's exactly what they're doing. It's your assigned sex. And they make it seem as if this ominous power gave you, now mind you this, a lot of these people are atheists. And they should be able to comprehend the kink in their logic that if you're born with this so-called assigned sex, who gave it to you? Who assigned it to you? Nobody at the hospital did. There's no corporation or company that has a stamp on your butt when you come out. It doesn't say made in China. It doesn't say Tesla. It doesn't say Dr. So-and-so assigned this. It's in your DNA. And you can't erase it. I don't care what they chop off and glue on. Your DNA is what you are. It's embedded in your blood and in your brain. And you have to add chemicals or hormones to try and reject or change that process or use surgery. And it's not corrective surgery. I've heard somebody use that term too, corrective surgery. You're not correcting anything. It should be called perverted surgery. You're perverting because you're changing the natural course of something that was made to be or function in that particular gender. I mean, what's next? We're going to get trans turtles? A dog, your dog just going to bark at you one day? I'm a turtle. I don't like being assigned the species that I was assigned. I want to be a turtle. I mean, what's next? Your cat decides it wants to be a camel? You got trans camels? You throw humps on a cat. This is how retarded it is. And I got a video, I'm gonna show you that even other people within the LGBT community are against this. But let's listen to this madness. This Transmania, right? So let me go back. Because I clicked on something and I went too far. So let me go back.
being asked his pronouns at school. First of all, if you think pronouns don't have a place in the classroom, you clearly don't understand grammar. But there's two problems.
They don't have a place in the classroom unless you're using the pronouns the person was born with. Again, sex is not assigned, it's identified. But this is the people that are teaching children.
With not asking pronouns to everybody. First, it puts the pressure on the child or teen to come up to a teacher who they may not feel is a safe adult yet and say they don't use their assigned at birth pronouns. And second, it then creates the assumption that if you don't use your assigned he, him, his, or she, her, hers, then you're not normal.
Now, listen at this. Let me tell you what's wrong with a lot of this stuff. Okay, let's say the human race exists for another 1,000 years, which I doubt. Because I believe that we running out of time, the Most High is tired of us. And he about to renovate this whole thing. But 1,000 years from now, we all die. Our flesh turns into dust, because from the dust we came, but our bones remain. When they take samples of ancient human beings, just like we do now, they're able to determine their sex, even though there are no sexual organs. And the reason they're able to do this is because they're able to sample their bone marrow, their DNA, or see certain physiological features that are just a part of that particular gender. So they know these bones belong to a woman. These bones belong to a man. Now, if this trans madness takes over and the non-binaries take over, what you'll have literally are people trying to say, well, so who was this person? Well, I don't know what their pronouns were, but according to what we see in the bones, they were a what? They won't have anything to describe them as. And if they do, they'll make up something crazy. I had an interesting conversation not too long ago with one of my family members, very young niece, thought she was very smart, came at me and told me gender was fluid. I said, no, it's not. And I said, if it is, then I want you to change into a boy and then change back into a girl. Become my nephew, then go back to being my niece. And then I began to explain to her, if you get attacked by someone, let's say they're non-binary, or you believe in this non-binary stuff. So she said, gender is fluid. How do you describe this person to the police? The police need a description to apprehend your assailant. So you have to tell them, well, they were about 5'6", male, short hair, or they were about 6 feet tall, female. I mean, that would be a big woman, but I'm just saying, you're getting assaulted, so they can be whatever size. You can't tell the police, well, it was a 5'10" androgynous non-binary person that attacked me. They can't go out and arrest someone with no sex. They're just gonna be going down the street stopping everybody that look like they're that height. They can be children, old people. They don't know. Because you have lost yourself in non-binary bullcrap. Well, who attacked you? It was a human. What kind of human? Was it a black human? Was it a white human? Because we're about to go transracial in a minute. They're already trying it. Rachel DeLaziel, all these different folks. So this is the madness that we're in. All right. So let's listen to this video right here. Let me start this again.
Jump out of a plane to kill that baby. I do not want to give birth. These dumbasses were making a live on TikTok and they were explaining about how, pro-life is good, abortions are bad, yada yada, all this and that. And I had to pop in, give my 2 cents, and they were like, they're babies. It's a human. Humans have rights, and you're gonna kill it? That's a murder. And I'm like, listen, bitch. I would get pregnant just to abort it. You can't argue with me, okay? I'm psycho. I would fucking kill it. I would push myself down the fucking stairs. I would jump.
She said she would get pregnant just to abort a baby. These are the kind of people that actually support this transgender, androgynous, non-binary agenda. Because once you go to the length or point of no longer identifying gender, life begins to also lose its value. You're just a nobody and a nothing. Let me see. I'm trying to find. Let me see. Let me see if we can find some. I want to show you some crazy. Because this website, this person has done a great job. They recently got doxxed, and they haven't done anything but show you all the various videos that a lot of these crazy liberal, far left, non-binary people, are putting on TikTok. Here's one. Let's look at this.
Books in my third grade classroom with LGBTQ representation because representation matters. Pride, the story of Harvey Milk and the rainbow flag, is a true story of how the rainbow flag came to be a symbol of the LGBTQ community and what it means to that community today. Julian is a mermaid and Pink is for boys are two stories that challenge gender stereotypes and encourage boys to be who they want to be and to not conform to what society tells them that they have to. A family is a family.
So listen at that again, the wordplay. Not conform to what society tells you have to be. How about what your stuff hanging in between your legs tell you that you are? It's not a matter of you have to be, that's what you are. That's what you are. Like, I can't wake up tomorrow and walk into a bank or any other facility or somewhere where I got to fill out an application and put down there something that's false, because then I could be arrested if I go in there and say, hey, I'm a white man. They say, sir, you're obviously not a white man. I redefine the whole thing. Well, obvious, what does that mean? Since the trans thing makes everything that's obvious no longer significant. I'm a white man named Bubba. I'm a transracial redneck named Bubba, and I demand to be treated with all the Bubba-ness that Bubba-ness comes with. Sir, you will call me Bubba. And I'm white and proud. What are they gonna say? This is, I'm telling you, I might just do that just for a week, just to troll people, just to see how stupid it is. But this is the kind of stuff you got going on. Look at this. Students have enjoyed taking part in a quiz based on LGBTQ as part of our LGBTQ month celebration. This is a great way for students to learn about the LGBTQ community. It's fantastic to see them so enthused. Now, this is a post. Sanders Draper School. I have no idea where that is at. Somebody can look that up. But understand this. The students didn't say that they were enjoying it. The students have no choice. Because again, they're a captive audience. They're being forced to take it, whether they enjoy it or not. This is the kind of thing that's happening. Let me show y'all something else. I got something for you. I'm gonna show you what the LGBT community considers drag friendly for children. All right, let's get it here. All right. Here we go.
Feeling like a woman.
Grandma and the grandbaby giving the drag queen with the fake boobs jumping around and dancing around in the family-friendly transgender restaurant establishment known as Hamburger Mary's. That's where this is taking place at. You know, that's where this is taking place at. And then they call this family friendly. I got some worse videos than this. It's so much information. You got kids out here stuffing dollars literally into the G-strings and panties of these drag queens and things that are going on. I mean, would you take your child to the strip club? No, it's not age appropriate. Would you take your child to a porn set? No, you wouldn't. But if it's trans, all of a sudden people seem to change their ideology or mindset about that. Their morals flip. So this is the kind of madness that we're seeing. Look at this.
a woman?
Hamburger Marys. Oh man. Let me, because like I said, I can show you better than I can tell you. But there are some people who are standing up to a lot of this madness, and they are willing to confront it, and take it on. So let's go to a few clips of that. One of them is a gentleman by the name of Matt Walsh, who has a movie out right now called What is a Woman? And he's been challenging this for some time. Some of you probably are familiar with him. You probably saw him on Dr. Phil. And he was taking on a trans, non-binary, whatever couple, and he was confronting them about their ideology. So let's get this here. So in fact, let me go ahead and put this in theater mode.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be?
Now this is Matt Walsh. Here's the guy with the glasses and the beard, and he's questioning a professor, supposed to be some type of psychotherapist, psychologist, or whatever. He's a college professor of gender studies. And watch how this professor gets triggered.
A male, then couldn't we plainly say this person is a male?
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important. So if someone tells
Just
you,
to sort of understand reality,
well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is. I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would.
Well, I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth again in social life.
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're going to stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is,
you keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you,
how is the word truth condescending and rude?
Why don't you tell me what your truth is? And you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back. So, how do you respond in a social situation?
That's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right. We're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
absolutely. We pursue truth, and I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
You just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say that if you're saying the truth is that I get to say you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
I don't think so.
Well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
Of course, I think it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you're going. I guess this all comes down to really one question. Especially women, gender and sexuality studies. So what is a woman?
Now, I want y'all to notice, because his whole movie is called What is a Woman? throughout the entirety of the movie, he went to various marches and different places, and he actually asked women who were marching for all these things. Because here's one of the interesting things. I think it's amazing that the trans and non-binary movement have gotten straight women to be their greatest supporters while they're undermining and erasing womanhood. They've gotten women to buy into their own marginalization and their own destruction. That's how wicked it is. I mean, it's so wicked that, like I said, even transgenders and lesbian women are opposed to it because they see what they're trying to do. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's continue to listen a little bit more.
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
how have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is
So
the
you
work
wanted
that I do.
you wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
Well, now I can say I've been to college.
So, there you see that, guys. Well, obviously, now you know it's interesting that this question was asked of our newest Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji. And she was asked that question, what could she define what a woman was? And she actually sidestepped it and said she could not because she was not a biologist. And then later on, she clarified that she was a woman. And this is the kind of, because she wanted the position so bad. And here's the thing, this is what it does when you see things like this, especially again, with the Black community, because we want to see our people advance and get in position, that we are so accepting of anyone because they share our same skin color or look that we don't listen. And this is why we ended up with 8 years of Obama and we're still mad. Because we're so happy to have a black face. So what we got out of Obama, for in large part, was photo ops. That's why a lot of folks got Obama as their background pictures on their profile and him and Michelle, but they don't have anything to show for it. But we got photos, lots of them. All right, we lived vicariously through the Obamas, many of us, just because they looked like us. And we didn't demand anything out of them. And so we got nothing out of them. And that's just the truth, whether you like it or not. All right. And so a lot of times what the liberal left will do is they'll just give us somebody that looks like us because they know we'll accept them, just like we did with Kamala. Once Joe threw her on the ticket, he knew he was going to the big house. Because he knew that most black folks were going to throw their support behind him just because they saw Kamala. And this is what we allow ourselves to do, to get used and abused because we don't educate ourselves. Let me show you. Let's do a preview of Matt's movie here, and let's see what it's all about.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that? Well, you're at the Women's March. You must have some idea. Please, if one person can tell me what a woman is.
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
What is that? I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4. I host a talk show. I give speeches. I write books. I like to make sense of things. A woman is not anything in particular.
There is not one particular thing.
It could be many things to many people.
Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas.
I like scented candles. I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah,
How do I know if I'm a woman?
that's a great question.
You're not a scientist. You're not a gender studies major.
No,
How do you know that you're a man?
I guess because I got a dick.
Can a man become a woman?
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Women only know what women are.
Now, I got to pause here, and we got to go back. The only 2 people
Can a man
that
become a
seem to have any sanity
No.
on this,
How do you
this
know?
movie is an old white man who lived long enough not to care, and a tribe in Africa who ain't having it. And listen to what they say, about this whole issue. This is just the preview of the movie.
No, that you're a man.
I guess because I got a dick.
Straight to the point.
Can a man become a woman?
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Women only know what women are.
Now, did y'all see that? A woman who's clearly
I can't
a
really
woman
answer that.
said, I'm not a woman, so I can't answer what a woman is. So not being a woman now disqualifies a woman or person as they, she's non-binary, and she's in education. That's the other thing. The school system in America and Europe is so corrupt right now because it's been infiltrated over the last 50 years by, again, far left liberals. And I'm not trying to really make this political, but I'm trying to show you who's really trying to push this. Because over the years, so many of them have dominated the colleges and universities. That's why this way of thinking is so dominant in a lot of your college age students. And now it's trickled on down to the high schools and now to the elementary schools. They position themselves in places where they would have the most influence and effect on people. Just like with the music industry. Music is the most influential form of communication. Even if you don't speak the language of a particular song, you still can somehow absorb the communication. And it's been the same way. Education is how you reach the masses. You get people in a captive audience situation, such as a classroom, auditorium, or institution of higher learning, and you indoctrinate them, not educate them, and they come out with these weird ideas, and then they spread those ideas to the masses. Same thing happens in prison, ironically. And it makes me sometimes think that maybe some of these institutes of higher learning are more like prisons of higher learning than they are actually institutions of education. Now, I champion higher learning and education. I have some education, but you have to be very discerning about who you're learning from and what you're learning. You don't go to school and let them change you. You go to school to get the information and learn how to research so you can make changes for you, not so that they can change you. And what's happened is we got a bunch of educated fools graduating from schools that is breaking all of God's rules. And they're changing society and reshaping the way we think, which is counter distinctive to the way we were designed. This is why this ideology has spread so rapid. It didn't happen overnight. It just seems like it did. But they've been building this Tower of Babel for a long time.
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Women only know what women are.
Are you a cat?
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is? You want to tell us what a woman is?
I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male. I will never be a man.
And so they go on the internet and they're told that all of their problems will be solved if they become a man.
So you worry that there could be a sort of social contagion element of this?
A teeny tiny bit, maybe. It got me at 42. Your child doesn't have a chance.
And you're affirming it with hormones that have never been used in this way.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible.
Completely reversible. Yeah.
Now, the first doctor said that they were reversing the children's natural hormone development unnaturally. And then you get these two transgender, non-binary, weird professors, like this woman right here, who he has an interview with online that you can see in its entirety from the movie, that now try to say it's completely harmless, which isn't true. Puberty blockers, when used on children to stop their natural puberty or maturation, is a form of chemical castration. It's unnatural, and it creates all types of psychological problems in that child because they're literally trying to stop the natural occurrence of your biology. I don't feel like growing up. Give me some puberty blockers. So you stop the natural hormonal secretions and different processes that cause you to develop into a fully mature man or woman. And this has all kinds of proven side effects that create a lot of the mental health problems that we're seeing. And this confusion, as it is what I feel is a lot of what contributes to a lot of these mass shootings and other things. And somebody might say, oh, don't say that. Listen, America needs to just tell the truth on itself. America got a mental health crisis that it's trying to cover up as a gun control problem. The gun don't jump up and just go out and decide, hey, I feel like killing people today. Somebody who has had some type of mental breakdown that has gone unattended because of all of the various things in our world and in our society and the various pressures they may have experienced on a personal level has gotten to a breaking point. The gun just becomes the instrument which they use in order to enact what's actually in them, the confusion, the madness, the turmoil, the anger, the rage. And you can't blame an inanimate object on the desire of the person. The person is the true weapon. You take away guns, you know what you're going to have? A knife problem, like they got in Great Britain. Because people are going to find a way to do evil because men are in sin. And when you add to it this excess of confusion coming from your gender identity, you're going to get more of this. Oh, I got some more stuff to show y'all. We're going to ride tonight, baby.
One of the drugs used is Lupron, right? Which has actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders.
You know what? I'm not sure that we should continue with this interview.
So you don't want to talk about the drugs that you give to kids, or?
How can they be removing the healthy breasts of 15-year-old girls?
There are masculine girls. There are feminine boys. What are we going to do about that? Carve them up?
How can this whole thing be happening, Matt?
I wanted us to have a safe place to be able to talk about this.
Part of me wants to ask why you care so much.
I care about the truth. I care about children. I care about the women who are having their opportunities stolen from them.
Is it transphobic to tell the truth?
The interview's over. Just turn off the cameras.
Excuse me,
For their fair question, I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
and you're not gonna find out.
Based on what I'm saying, would you ever want to move to America?
They say no, never.
I hope you enjoyed it a little bit.
We'll see when it comes out.
Transmania, y'all. People going crazy. Now I'm gonna show y'all just how bad, because here's the thing again. The transgender and queer agendas undermine women's rights, everything that women have strived for as women, because all it does is create an avenue for men to invade women's spaces. Show y'all a story, what I'm talking about. The very thing that women fought for, to have their own this and that, is being undermined. And the funny thing about it is women are the ones who are fighting for men to be able to do this to them. Fallon Fox, transgender MMA fighter who broke the skull of her opponent. Look at this. And I mean, and this dude, woman thing, this Baphomet is huge. All right. So let's read a little bit. Fallon Fox is a retired transgender MMA fighter. She was born a man. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. Fallon Fox is a retired transgender MMA fighter. She was born a man, but now lives as a woman and is still in the process of transitioning from male to female with hormone therapy. She's going to forever be in the process because it'll never be complete, because you can't change who you are. In addition to hormone therapy, Fox had gender reassignment surgery back in 2006. Now think about it. If these things could be done permanently, why after the surgery you still have to take the hormones? Because your natural God-given biology will reassert itself and take back over to turn you back into what you were born as. That's just a fact. Let's scroll down. Transgender fighter Fallon Fox. Fallon Fox's story has been very controversial because up until 2011, it was not known that she came from a life of being male. So think about this. All this time, a lot of people thought this was, a natural woman. But this has been, but this is a man. This is a man. Says she fought several times before her gender history surfaced and became public. Since then, there has been heavy debate about whether or not she should be able to fight women. And some believe that it is an unfair advantage for Fallon, who spent her physical prime as a man, whose bones and muscles were developed on testosterone. And that's exactly the problem. So what they've tried to do now by going after children is we're going to try to affect these processes earlier, so you won't be so masculine later. But it's not gonna work. All the stuff that women fought for had their safe spaces. Women have their own sports because physiologically, a woman can't equal a man in these things. You have some extraordinary women who are doing some extraordinary things, but those women are exceptions to the rule. Because in comparison to the majority of men on a physical level, they can't compete. Serena Williams even admitted in one interview, as great as a tennis player as she is, well, if she went and played against the men, she wouldn't even be better than some of the lowest ranked men. And it's not a matter of just she don't have the skill, it's the physical ability. You don't see WNBA players going to the NBA. And as hard as the NFL now is trying to push it, because the Carolina Panthers have a transgender cheerleader. If you see women on a football field with the NFL, she going to the hospital. NFL gonna really mean not for long. Because you're not gonna have 300-pound men who can bench press 600 pounds running up against a 150-pound woman and think that that's fair. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger. You're not going to see Diana Taurasi, who was a great female basketball player, outplaying LeBron. The physiological difference is too great. The average NBA player is 6'9". The average WNBA player is like 5 foot something. They don't even come close. But this is the kind of stuff you see pushed. So when people ask the question, well, why don't the trans men seem to be as much of a threat to men as trans women are to natural women? Again, it's because of the physiological differences. A trans man is never going to be stronger or able to compete with men on that level on a regular basis. You're not going to have an influx of trans men, because for a woman transitioning to a male, physically, not psychologically or mentally, I mean, because women are smart too, but physically it's a step up. It's a huge step up, and your legs ain't long enough to make that step. But for men who decide they want to be a woman, it's a step down. So as a result, what you're seeing is these trans women who are men biologically going into women's sports and athletics and dominating women. I mean, it ain't even close. These same men who can't compete with other men go into the women's things and dominate them. Some of the weakest men dominating some of the best women. So look at this. It says, however, on Fox's side, she claims that since she has been taking female hormones, she is a woman just like all other women, and that she should not be treated differently. In an interview with Ariel Helwani from MMA Fighting, Fallon explains she has been feeling throughout this gender change process. I definitely feel whatever. I ain't gonna try to talk like them. I'm just gonna talk like she probably really said. I definitely feel the chemistry and balance of hormones and all that kind of stuff in my body just feels real good. This controversy raises many questions about gender equality and what transgender athletes should have. Now, let's scroll down and let's look at, this is Fallon Fox. This is Fallon Fox. All right. Now, it's interesting here that the caption says soon after she gave birth to her daughter. He gave birth, but they call her she. This is a man. No, the woman that he was with gave birth to a daughter. He did not. But soon after she gave birth to her daughter, she joined the U.S. Navy to support her family. And notice how they go out of their way to call her she. He, she, and she served in the USS Enterprise as an operations specialist. So this is Fallon Fox, the man, all right, under whatever name they were going by. But as she said, it was pretty hard. It was a pretty hard time for her as she was going constantly fighting with gender issues, which caused ongoing psychological stress. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Psychological stress is another term you're going to hear a lot. But understand this, the psychological stress that these people are all saying that they're having is not a result of being the wrong gender. It's the result of rejecting the gender that you are. It's a result of going against your natural biology. Yet they fault the biology, the process itself, as if, again, some ominous power chose something for them that doesn't align with their mentality. How you feel doesn't determine what is real. This is all about feelings. So now, he gets gender reassignment surgery so that the way he feels now lines up with how he wants to look. So he turns into a she. And of all things that they decide to go into, they go into mixed martial arts fighting. And here's the transition, before and after. Look at this. Before and after. And I watched one of the fights. I wish I had a video, but this report of her breaking the skull of another woman is real. And that's because Fallon Fox is still a man. So basically what you have is people cheering on a man beating up a woman and getting paid for it. That's not the only story we got. We got another one. Because you think that's bad, we got another one goes right along with it. Special Forces. Now, I was in the Marine Corps. I know something about this. But this was some Army dude. So look at this. Former Special Forces. Yeah, the people they've been making all these movies about and stuff like that. Do all these, dangerous things. Former Special Forces transgender MMA fighter beats up biological female in competition. Now I watched this fight, and I'm gonna tell you the horrible thing. This is the dude girl in the pink hair with their hand raised. I watched this fight, and one of the things that stood out to me was that the transgender, whose name is Alana McLaughlin, wasn't even fazed by what the natural woman was doing to her in terms of punches and kicks and things like that. She could just overpower her and walk right through it. And you got to also consider the fact that his background is as a special forces operator. So they got training that the majority of the world never gets. So this is a well-conditioned male, biological male beating up a woman. This is what you have. And so it says transgender MMA fighter Alana McLaughlin won his fight against a biological female on Friday night in the Combate Global Prelims in Miami, Florida. McLaughlin, a biological male, won his fight against his biologically female competitor, Celine Provost, according to ESPN. He used a rear naked choke to get the finish at 3 minutes, 32 seconds of the second round. Now, the thing about it was the woman was actually a more skilled fighter. All right? It was actually a more skilled fighter. And she had hands. And I was watching the fight, and man, she would bing, bing. She would put them hands on this former Army Ranger. Okay? But this Army Ranger was just too physically overpowering and strong, and eventually got a hold of her, like men are able to do, and grabbed her, threw her down, and choked her out and ended the fight. And so this is what happened. Now, somebody asked, Janae asked, is it a chemical imbalance of the mind? No, it's an imbalance of sin. That's what it is. It's an imbalance of sin. It's a spiritual imbalance. That's what it is. But basically, like I said, grabbed her and choked her out. Grabbed her and choked her out. I'm gonna show y'all something else. Because I want to show y'all, I want you to see just how wicked this Babylon is that we're in. Because I told y'all, they go lower to try to say, you've heard people say, oh, I knew I was gay when I was 5. And I knew I was gay when I was 10. You didn't know nothing. You was a kid. You thought little girls were nice and made of sugar and spice, and boys were made of snails and puppy dog tails. You thought Santa Claus came on December 25th. You thought that the tooth fairy actually put money under your pillow because your teeth fell out. We thought all kinds of stuff as kids. How could you be so sure that you were something unless some adult indoctrinated you? And most of the time what you're hearing when they're interviewing adults and asking them, when did you know you were gay? They're lying because they're trying to make it seem like they always knew, as if this was a natural, biological, or psychological thing, and it's not. But what's worse now is you have parents who are indoctrinating their children to this. Let me show y'all something. Somebody said there's too much truth. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of it tonight. So check this out. This is an 11-year-old drag kid. Now look at that. We went from drag queens to drag kids. This is Desmond the Amazing, is what they call him. Or Desmond.
If you haven't heard the name Desmond Napoles, get ready for this trailblazing 11-year-old drag kid who RuPaul is calling the future. His bravery is inspiring so many. We're going to talk to him in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at his amazing story.
I'm Desmond. I'm 11 years old, and I like pizza, trains, and drinking root beers that's caffeine free. I also do drag, and I love to put on makeup, dresses, and wigs, and of course, jewelry if necessary. My full drag name is Desmond is Amazing. I feel very happy to have a mom that accepts me.
It really touches me deeply that there are other children out there that he's reaching and they're listening to him and he's influencing them to be themselves.
I'm very proud of him. I'm proud that he's found his path so early.
My greatest joy in this is just seeing Desmond happy.
I love doing drag because it makes me feel amazing and self-expressive. It just feels amazing to know that people love what I do. My one big message would be 3 words: be yourself always.
Please welcome Desmond Napoles, aka Desmond is Amazing.
Now I want y'all to look at all these people clapping and smiling. Look at them. These are the faces of pedophiles. Now somebody say, how can you say that, Blaktastic? They're not molesting children. They're implicit in this behavior. They're cheering it on. You don't have to be performing the behavior. But if you have pleasure in them that do such things, you're just as guilty because you're an accomplice. And that's what the scriptures say. Pleasure in them that do such things. And these people are celebrating the turning out, because that's literally what you're seeing, of this 11-year-old boy by his parents to be paraded to the whole world as a sex object, because he's going to be used, he's going to be abused if he hasn't already been. And here you got somebody who I admired, Michael Strahan, NFL Hall of Famer, supposedly a manly man. But because he's getting that big paycheck, morals don't matter. And he, along with his host, are cheering it on too. This is child sacrifice.
love that you love root beer caffeine free. I can get on board with that.
My mom doesn't like me drinking caffeine.
Isn't it sad? His mama don't like him drinking caffeine, but she don't have no problem with him dressing like a drag queen. You see how warped the morals of people have become? This is how bad. This is how bad it is. Now, not only that, but you also have the drag queens they're doing shows for children. Yeah, I'm gonna hit y'all with a lot. It's gonna be worth it. Y'all roll with me for a minute. I got some more to show you. You need to see this. You need to see this. So here's a drag show in Texas.
At a Dallas area gay bar in Texas has caused a massive stir and has kicked off a debate over where
It's called Drag Kids to Pride. That was the name of the event. This is the kind of stuff that's going on this month. In the month of June, where you got not only Juneteenth, but also Father's Day, whether you celebrate it or not, you got Pride Month. And what's happening during Pride Month? The perversion of men and children primarily to become effeminate. Isn't that interesting? And who seems to be heavily targeted through Hollywood and entertainment to lead the charge? The Black community. I mean, all of this comes together at one time.
whether or not children should be around drag events. The Drag Your Kids to Pride event had drag performers dancing and walking down the aisle in the center of a room, and children could be seen tipping the drag queens.
Now, did y'all hear that? Children tipping the drag queens. So they just throwing the babies at the devil, giving them money to just sell themselves.
Some children were also seen walking down the aisle with the dancers. Now, this event has caused outrage among anti-LGBTQ right-wing protesters, despite the fact that the performers were clothed and engaged in non-sexual dancing. Protesters chanted, "Christ is King," outside the venue and carried signs saying, "Stop exploiting kids." Several social media users also expressed anger, calling the event obscene and allowing children to it unacceptable. Texas Representative Brian Slatton has now said that he will introduce a legislation that will ban minors from drag shows. He also called parents who take their children to events with drag queens as perverted adults who are obsessed with sexualizing young children. Several non-Texan Republican leaders also spoke out against the event, including Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. And many have taken issue with Republican lawmakers seemingly prioritizing drag queen shows over a gun legislation in the wake of the Texas school shooting just weeks ago that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. This controversy over the event comes as Pride Month kicks off in the United States and a debate rages on across the country about the role of gender identity education for children. In the most basic sense, drag typically refers to an art form of men, either heterosexual or queer, dressing up as women for theatre, a tradition that dates back to Shakespearean days. The trans community has been integral to the development of drag. Often, drag queens use their drag for more serious activism and even light-hearted comedy or sketches. The art form of drag is not inherently sexual or tied to any one sexual orientation or identity. And over the years, as drag performances became more mainstream, it is gaining wider and younger audiences. Some children have been inspired to craft their own drag personas.
Now look at this. Kids crafting their own drag personas, just like we just saw with Desmond the Amazing. They're conditioning. This is, like I said, this is pedophilia. They're conditioning the children for a life they want them to lead later. It's almost like raising cattle. You fatten it up, you feed it, and you get it ready so that you can consume it when it's time. And this is what you have going on with the transgender and queer communities. Don't think they're prepping these children for a life of productivity or any type of morality, holiness, or anything. They prepping them so that they can corrupt them even further and abuse their bodies and misuse them by messing up their minds. Look at this.
Psychologists say the idea that drag is somehow bad for children is incorrect. They say from a developmental standpoint, children have a very fluid understanding of gender, and that healthy conversations around gender roles and gender expression must be encouraged.
So this is the kind of foolishness that we're seeing being promoted. Now, there's more than, like I said, I can show you better than I can tell you. But I tell you what, let's hear from some drag queens who go against the grain of their own community and are not necessarily down with this. They're going to tell you the truth. So exposed by their own people.
All right, so tell me, you're Lady MAGA. Tell me about you.
I am Lady MAGA USA, and I grew up. I'm gay, and I was a professional drag queen. I was a professional Britney Spears impersonator, and I had a lot of fun. But as you know, over the last 5-6 years, the LGBTQIA XYZ LMNOP MAP movement, they no longer stand for equality or inclusion. They stand for cultural dominance. And I really decided to step away once they started pushing hormones and castration and sterilization on children. Because guess what? When I was 9 years old, I used to sneak and wear my sister's cheerleading outfits. I've always loved hair and makeup. So if I had been born to...
Now think about what she said. They pushing castration on children. This stuff is not new. These are the practices of these ancient religious cults that Israel always went up against. It was a common thing to castrate boys at an early age and turn them into eunuchs so that they could serve in some religious setting or so that they could be used sexually without being a threat sexually. So they cut off their penis, but they use their booty. And this is the kind of stuff that was happening even back then. Trying to make these men into women. They just, oh my goodness. and having them serve these idol gods. A lot of times the temple prostitutes weren't always women, but they were transsexuals. They were men dressed up as women. Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, a lot of these so-called great historical figures were all bisexual, with a greater proclivity for homosexuality, only performing their heterosexual duty to try to produce heirs, which ironically neither of those two names did. But let's listen to some more.
Day in this modern LGBTQIA XYZ culture, they would have told me I'm in the wrong body. And they could have given me hormones. They could have mutilated me before I was 18 and knew what I was doing. So the reason I stepped away is because all I ask is the freedom to be gay, wear a wig, have a good time. My freedoms end where the freedoms of others begin. And that includes evangelical Christians. That includes people who say I'm going to hell, because I am a free speech absolutist. And if I want to have the free speech to, be crazy and have fun, then I have to defend the free speech of others. And so that's why in 2019, I just said enough is enough. This LGBTQIA plus movement is doing things in my name, so to speak, that I cannot tolerate. So I jumped on the Trump train. I went to rallies. I took a big risk. Like, can I do this? Wearing a wig. And it's been nothing but acceptance and unity as patriots.
So here you got the drag queen telling you that this stuff ain't for children and telling you some of the things they're doing. Oh man. let me get you even better one than that. Let's see, so you can really see this up close and personal.
Hi, everybody. This is Kitty Demure, your friendly favorite conservative drag queen.
Anyway, I have another message for heterosexual women, the ones who have children. I have no idea why you want drag queens to read books to your children. I have no idea. What in the hell has a drag queen ever done to make you have so much respect for them and admire them so much, other than put on makeup and jump on the floor and writhe around and do sexual things on stage? I have absolutely no idea why you would want that to influence your child. Would you want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore. They could explore dressing up at home like we all did, like all gay boys did. We all dressed at home and we had a great time. We had a great time with our girlfriends, putting on makeup, trying on clothes, things like that. But to actually get them involved in drag is extremely, extremely irresponsible on your part. And I understand you might want to look like you're with it, that you're cool, that you're woke, that you're not a Nazi, that you're not a homophobe, whatever it may be. But you can raise your child to be just a normal, regular, everyday child without including them in gay, sexual things. And honestly, you're not doing the gay community any favors. In fact, you're hurting us, okay? We have already had a reputation of being pedophiles and being perverts and deviants. We don't need you to bring your children around. So you keep your kids at home or take them to Disneyland or take them to Chuck E. Cheese. But if you need your child to be entertained by a big human in a costume or in makeup, take them to the circus or something. When they turn 18, then why don't you take them to the clubs on their 18th birthday? Because it's an adult thing, okay? So don't ruin your child's life and don't ruin us, because that's what you're doing. Hi, everybody. I want to talk about something that really breaks my heart, and I think it's disgusting. And
now this is the same person, but in a different video.
I think it looks really, really bad for the drag community and the gay community, is allowing children into the gay clubs to do drag. Now, I know this isn't happening everywhere and it's not happening every day.
Now, do you hear what he said? Children being allowed into the gay clubs to do drag. The previous video, you heard what he said about what happens at these places. But yet, here you have him telling you that there are parents that are bringing their children to these clubs. I told y'all, child sacrifice. Passing your children through the fire. That's what's happening here. I guarantee you some of these folks get up on Sunday and go to church somewhere, or probably living some type of atheistic, agnostic life, thinking they're superior in their intelligence while doing these particular things. Let's listen.
But it is happening. And I saw a picture the other day of a drag queen that I have worked with. Her name is Violet Chachki. She has actually won RuPaul's Drag Race. She was considered Drag Race's superstar for a year. She was recently photographed with a child somewhere, and she was naked, and she had tape over her genitals. That's what we call tucking in the drag world. That's taking your penis and basically putting it up the crack of your ass and putting tape on it. She was in this state of undress around this child. I'm assuming the child was around 12. I can't remember, but I don't care how old the child was. The child was underage. I don't understand why someone would put themselves in such a compromising position. And I don't understand why the drag world is not condemning this. In fact, I think RuPaul herself should be condemning this. She is like the reigning drag superstar queen of the world right now. And I think that she could act a little more responsible and speak out about this. And if she has, and I haven't seen it, then I apologize. But I think the drag community and the gay community needs to do better. And they need to keep children out of these venues, and they need to keep them out of gay events. I did a video not that long ago about children at gay pride events. They don't belong there either. There's a lot of adult activity that is going on at the gay pride events and in the nightclubs.
Now, let me say something about that real quick. About at the gay pride events. I lived in Southern California for most of my life, well, half my life. And I did a lot of contract work in Northern California, like in the Bay Area, around San Francisco, Oakland, San Leandro, which is really the capital, so to speak, of the LGBT world. I know people keep trying to make Atlanta the capital, but let me say this in defense of Atlanta, and to you black folks in particular, stop promoting that white supremacist propaganda. You are talking against your own people. The reason why people keep saying Atlanta is because Atlanta has some of the more prominent gay people down here who have money, and they're on television, and you see them in the media, and you hear these stories. But the real reason they put that propaganda out there, again, is to try and make not just Atlanta, but the black community, because Atlanta is 54% black. And it has the most successful black people in the country here in the city. All right? And so they demonize the whole community. You had women around here telling us, I don't want nothing that come out of Atlanta. I don't want this, I don't want that. There's all kinds of good stuff down here. Atlanta's not even in the top 10 of gayest cities in America. But because you see some gay men on TV who enrolls to prominence, you didn't demonize the whole city and your whole entire community, some of your own relatives. The reason they're doing that is to try to bring shame on you too, no matter where you live. By saying, look, at your most successful community, where the majority of you all are concentrated at, with all that money and success, and all those high-powered positions and jobs, look at y'all. You're just a pack of perverts. And you got a pack of perverts down here. I ain't gonna lie about that. But they in Memphis, they in Chicago, they in LA. Yep, they done made y'all focus so much on Atlanta and black folks that y'all done forgot all about San Francisco is still the rice-a-roni treat, or the San Francisco treat of America and of the world. You act like San Francisco don't exist. Because they done turned you on your own people. And y'all need to stop going around saying that foolishness. There's a reason why certain messages are communicated to you. And I'm sick and tired of seeing black folks in particular pick up white supremacist propaganda and use it against themselves that they don't even know where it came from. If you go to other cities, New York, Florida, there's a whole bunch of places. Y'all act like those places don't exist no more. All right, let me tell you something. Atlanta, because of its prominence, you're going to attract all kinds of people down here. And you got some men who came down here just for that. But you got some folks that moved to LA just for that too. They go wherever they want to go. Phoenix is another place. You had all kinds of cities that got these little things going on. Atlanta became more popular because you got the down low phenomena and all that other kind of stuff that's happening down here. But let me just say this again. It's spread out all over the country. You can't hardly go almost anywhere. And it's not there. And that's because they're not in the closet no more. The closet been burned down. They in the front yard. They on the street. They on the billboard. So you see it more than you ever have seen it. And when you come to a city like this, it will kind of, if you're a black person in particular, and you never lived around as many black people, well, because again, it's predominantly black, yeah, you're gonna see it more than you've seen it. I've seen some things here that I didn't even know existed, like the gay thug. And I was telling people, I said, dog, man, you got gay thugs down here. They gangster gays. And y'all see what's happening right now with Young Thug and all these other cats that's been arrested, and all this other kind of stuff. This is the truth of what's happening. So I'm not denying, but what I'm saying is there's some propaganda behind it too. Because there's a whole lot of other things. But what happens is when people promote the bad, your mind never sees the good. It never sees the good. But San Francisco, the Bay Area, it has not lost its crown. It has not lost the title. And then New York City right behind it, Los Angeles right next to that. Miami got a whole ton of them. You got all kinds of places in America where they're at. And I seen a bunch in Dallas when I was down there. So there's nowhere you can go, all right, where they're not. But understand something, it's a calculated strategy to try and target anywhere black people are concentrated in mass and are doing well. Now, I told y'all that at the beginning of all of this, all right? The effort to effeminize black men so they become less desirable to black women. And they become less threatening to the white community. And they become more docile. Basically, they're, turned into eunuchs almost, or castrated. They're not even looked at as men anymore. This is a serious thing. Why would they do that to us? You need to think about that so you don't contribute to it. And you ought to put a greater effort in building up your people and your community so we're not swept away with this madness. They had the black woman feeling isolated and alone, and so she only has a few options. She either becomes a lesbian or she goes to another race. And as that happens, this is long planning by the enemy. As that happens, the black race diminishes more and more and more and more. We got mass shootings happening all over the country, but you got mass murder been happening in Planned Parenthood and through all over the country in these abortion clinics that far exceed however many people folks can shoot with an AR-15. This is why I'm showing y'all all these videos to pull the covers back, because we get lost in so many frivolous arguments. We argue all the time. Oh, what's the name of the Father, of the Most High? Is it Yahweh? Is it Yah? Is it Yahuwah? Is it Yahweh? Is it Yeshua, Jesus, Yahweh Shai? You can't say God, you can't say Lord. I know, because I have addressed it with people all the time. And I hate addressing it, but I do, because I get tired of people trying to come at me who can't even speak Hebrew, have the nerve to try to tell me how to speak Hebrew. They can barely speak English. Majoring in the minors, while the rest of the world in our community is losing our minds, and this is the kind of frivolous stuff we arguing about. And we already got enough trouble between men and women, and black men and women having problems getting together because we always at odds with each other, always at each other's throats. For single black people in the church community or in the Israelite community, the prospects are bleak, because we spend too much time tearing each other down rather than building each other up. And we got all these other forces coming at us that are tearing us down. So it's more tearing down than building up. Black men are sometimes too abusive and domineering. We got too high a rate of, oh my goodness, intimate partner violence amongst our couples, and the number one killer in terms of murder of the black woman is the black man. We got black on black crime, which everybody, you start bringing that up, we all start talking about some, oh, you a coon. Let me stop this for a moment. You a coon, why you bring that up? Because we need to bring it up. We murdering each other in the streets on a regular basis, and you got guys going in, like in Buffalo, killing us wholesale. Now we mad and we want to march and we want action to be taking place, but you ain't addressing the niggas out here that's killing each other. We got angry black women, yeah, I said it, that can't get along with nobody, effeminizing their sons, or being rude and mean for no reason because some other dude did something to you. And then you're turning all the young boys into women, and then you got the nerve to say, ain't no good men out here. Yeah, you got it. Both sides got to get it. Ain't nobody innocent. We destroying ourselves. And sisters make it pose, I want a husband. No, you don't, because you argue with every man you meet. You done passed up 10 good dudes and you picked the no good Negro, and then you get mad at him and take it out on everybody else. And then we getting old and we in our 40s and 50s and we trying to date and find somebody to sit down and settle down with after we didn't cause madness for the first 30, 40 years of our life and made everybody else miserable. It's our fault. If you blame every partner you ever been with, then you the problem. I ain't been with that many people and couldn't be successful with none of them, but everybody was crazy. Everybody was abusive. Everybody didn't understand you. They couldn't handle a strong black woman. They couldn't handle or sit under the authority of a man of God. You ain't no man of God. You just a fool with a penis. And think that every woman should respect and obey you because you a man? You ain't showed no kind of leadership just because you can quote a few scriptures? Negro, please. We got too many problems amongst us to spend as much time as we do arguing about the foolishness that we argue about. You out here arguing on the street corner, cussing and fussing at other folks, dressed up like one of the Power Rangers, ain't got no job, ain't productive, but you want to marry 2 and 3 wives who you want to pimp out and work for you and support you while you argue with Negroes on the internet. We out of shape, we unhealthy. Oh my goodness. And the sisters, oh, I want to be a submissive wife. No, you don't. You ain't been submissive one day in your life. You disqualify every man you meet. You done met 10 good ones. And then you try to, Lord have mercy. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole and not be able to get out of it for another 30 minutes if I keep going. But some of y'all talk too much. Everybody in your family stays away from you because you don't know how to diversify the conversation. They can't just have a good time around you because you always want to debate, fight, and talk about all these various things, and you don't know how to enjoy life. Your children pull back from you, your best friends pull back from you, your siblings pull back from you, but you want somebody to marry your madness. No, it ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen with you either, brother. Didn't no woman go through all the hell she went through to become your slave? So we, as a people, the only way we're gonna be able to combat these things is we gotta look ourselves in the mirror, confront ourselves, and be honest. We gotta stop the madness. We gotta stop it. We gotta stop it. Men, we were made first. Being the head or the leader doesn't mean being the boss and general foreman. It means being the example, the sacrifice. That's what it means. You're the shield, the protector. Women, you were made from the side of the man, not from his butt to be behind him and not from his chest to be in front of him, but to be beside him. Eve got in trouble because she let Satan deceive her in trying to jump ahead because she started to believe the words of the devil against her husband and the Lord. So she thought that Adam and the Most High were holding out on her. And the Most High told her when he was punishing them, your desire is going to be to your husband. That don't mean you're going to always want a man. That means you're going to want to rule and be in charge over the man. And that's your fight. You got to fight with that in you to be in alignment with the will of the Most High. And again, man, being the head don't mean you crush what's underneath you, because what's under you is helping hold you up. If you ain't got no supportive neck, you're going to have a dead head, brother. So we got to learn how to get back to Eden and make it work. We have to learn how to be who we are. The reason why these transgender folks are so out of sorts is because they don't like their roles. They don't want to be a man or they don't want to be a woman. Everybody wants to be something that they're not designed or meant to be. They want to do everybody else's job or assignment better than them when they not been assigned to it. Men ain't made to be women, and women ain't made to be men. All this divine, feminine energy, masculine, divine, that is some bull crap. The Most High is the only divine. Ain't nothing divine about you. We sinners. Don't let this esoteric, comedic bull's cry, whatever it is. It's bull something. All right, y'all know what I'm talking about. This new age bull crap misleads you. Oh, I'm divine. No, you ain't. You need to repent every day or examine yourself every day and see if there's anything in you that need to be changed or improved. And I guarantee you, if you look long enough and you search and use the word as your magnifying glass, you're going to always find something. You're not going to be perfected in truth until you get to glory. All right, that's enough for me. And I think Kitty Pryde said as much as we needed to say. But I want to show y'all something else that doesn't get talked about very much when it comes to this whole gender bender, non-binary thing. All right, as it relates to the transsexual community. Because you have what's going on, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but one of the things that's been going on is trans women who are biological men have been getting into women's prisons. And they're purposely keeping their penises for a reason. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's take a look at something here I want to share with y'all.
Lord, click the link in the description. Established Titles is running a massive Father's Day sale, and with code Sydney, you can get an additional 10% off your entire purchase. In 1987, a man was shot and killed after a heated exchange outside a bar in Orange County, California. The perpetrator was sentenced to 17 years to life in a male prison. That inmate came to be known as Michelle Norsworthy, a biological male who, behind bars, began identifying as a woman. Norsworthy began expressing as female around 1994 and was eventually transferred to a Californian prison with a gender clinic. In 1999, Norsworthy was diagnosed with gender dysphoria and a year later was allowed to take female hormones. After suffering sexual abuse behind bars and with declining mental health, a prison psychologist recommended surgical treatments for gender dysphoria to alleviate Norsworthy's psychological stress. This wasn't easy at all to achieve. Norsworthy was denied access to those treatments time and time again, until 2014, when Norsworthy sued the state of California. The following year, a federal judge concluded that denial of care violated Norsworthy's rights under the Eighth Amendment. This refers to cruel and unusual punishments not being inflicted on prisoners. Is that why we don't lop people's hands off when they graffiti things? Probably yes. I'm just thinking out loud, but maybe that would deter them. But anyway, remember the 8th Amendment. It comes up a lot with this topic. The court essentially ordered that the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation provide Norsworthy with adequate medical care, including sex reassignment surgery, as promptly as possible. This was undoubtedly a turning point. The ruling set a precedent for transgender inmates and their right to specific treatments behind bars. Norsworthy was viewed by trans activists as a pioneer. But even Norsworthy admits now in 2022 that the door opened by this ruling was not a good one.
Because I didn't mean for this to happen. My case opened up a doorway in 2015 that I don't know, I'm waiting for the states to apologize to women. I didn't mean for this to happen.
Well, it did happen. And it is happening. And while Norsworthy might have opened a quite regrettable door, this has been going on for quite some time. The subject of placing trans women or biological males in women's institutions has been a very hot topic for civil rights groups and activists for the longest time. They argue that transgender women are at risk of sexual violence and general violence in men's institutions, and that they themselves do not pose a risk to female inmates. Oftentimes, transgender inmates are presented by the media and social discourse as a poorly treated population in need of rescue from a broken justice system and in need of affirmation for their gender identity. I need rescuing from this crap, but you don't see me complaining. I can't believe it's only taken me 2 years and I'm more than ready for the asteroid. Pro-LGBT outlets routinely focus on terrible cases of abuse in order to push the idea that males should be accommodated in women's prisons, so long as they identify as a woman. The issue long as they identify as a woman. The issue is, and I made this
You know what? I just realized I did all that talking and I was on mute. Sorry about that. But what I was saying was, let's go back to this part right here. It says transgender woman beaten after being jailed with 3 men, lawsuit says. Do you see what's fundamentally wrong with this? This is not a woman. This is a man that got beaten up in jail with 3 other men. This happens quite regularly. But they're portraying this as if this is a woman. Now listen, because eventually they're going to try to get rid of the whole trans title, because they've already, in Virginia, they've already passed a law that you can change your birth certificate to align with what you believe you are or identify as. That way nobody could go back into your history and try to pull up the fact that you were actually born a biological male or female. And this is very dangerous, especially when it comes to medical issues and other things like this. But this is how deep, this ain't even the rabbit hole no more. They didn't dug all the way to hell. This is how deep the hellhole goes. But look how they're passing this off in the media. I mean, and they're not even concerned or thinking about what they're saying about themselves. They're making it look as if they themselves, the system, threw a woman to men. So that means the system itself was cruel and unusual, but this is the justification they're trying to use to allow these same transgender women who are biological men in the women's facilities. And listen to what happens to women, actual real women, when they start doing this, because the transgender women who were the victims in the men's jail where they actually belong now become the predators. Just keep listening.
On terrible cases of abuse in order to push the idea that males should be accommodated in women's prisons, so long as they identify as a woman. The issue is, and I made this point in my 2019 video, nobody really seems particularly concerned with what this does to female inmates. There is very little interest in how this impacts them, and no significant attention has been given to the data on this topic to determine if there is in fact a risk posed to women, which activists often claim doesn't exist. It does. It brings us to a point where we have to ask if the rights and safety of female inmates are being traded away, with very few people, like I said, actually interested in the consequences. Although, like I mentioned earlier, there have been significant developments when it comes to this topic, housing biological males in women's prisons is still a reasonably new phenomenon. We can trace it back to 2003 when a federal law called the Prison Rape Elimination Act, or PREA, came into effect. PREA was intended to prevent, track, and punish all kinds of sexual violence and abuse in prison. The legislation itself makes a point of saying that the high incidence of sexual assault within prisons involves actual and potential violations of the United States Constitution. You guessed it, the Eighth Amendment. Interestingly, it then references a 1994 court case, Farmer v. Brennan, where a pre-operative transsexual called D. Farmer, who projected feminine characteristics, sued a prison because the officials had displayed deliberate indifference to Farmer's safety, knowing the prison was a very violent environment. I'm confused. Aren't they all violent environments? It's worth noting that Farmer wasn't trying to be moved to a female facility, but rather be housed separately in a co-correctional institution. This feels like, at least in part, the basis for a lot of transgender cases and claims that came after. Many of them relate to the Eighth Amendment as the justification and basis for their positions. I don't know, guys, call me crazy, but I think of cruel and unusual punishment as like, you know, drawing and quartering people or putting them in the box with the spikes and the face mask and the torture like that. You know, not housing people in a facility that matches their biological sex. They're not the same. Now, the 2003 PREA Act does not mention transgender, intersex, gender identity, or any similar wording of the sort. In fact, while the law was designed to protect inmates from sexual abuse, it does not establish rules on housing and moving inmates, and especially not based on how they identify. Rather, it was about protecting inmates in the institutions in which they are housed, because 2003 was a time that actually made more sense. I miss that. But as with most things, even this got weird. In 2012, the Department of Justice issued a final notice of PREA standards. So basically standards building on but separate to the 2003 legislation. The standards were expected to be implemented by all federal prisons and any state facilities that wanted to continue receiving federal funding. The 2012 standards included things like letting trans and intersex inmates shower separately from other inmates, and moving trans inmates to male and female facilities on a case-by-case basis. Of course, things were then accelerated in 2017 when Obama introduced the Federal Bureau of Prisons policies days before he left office. They stipulated that a federal inmate should be housed with respect to their gender identity. People love this gender identity stuff. In 2018, after several female inmates in the federal system in Texas challenged the policy in court, saying it made them feel unsafe because, I mean, like, no one's surprised by that, the Trump administration rolled back the policies and once again housed inmates based on biological sex. Gender identity was only considered in rare cases. For example, this would apply if someone had transitioned fully medically and surgically and would stick out like a sore thumb in a men's prison. We're talking people who look like Blair White. In 2022, the Biden administration rolled back Trump's rollback and reinstituted Obama's policies.
What is this?
Something that is obvious but still important to note is that federal and state laws are different. My understanding is that states can determine how they implement PREA on an individual level. and the policies that states have vary greatly. Remember how I mentioned California handing out condoms? Well, that's because California is one of the many states that have passed their own laws with pretty lax standards for cross-sex housing in prison. Senate Bill 132 came into effect in January 2021, and it disturbed people, and for good reason. The law allows for incarcerated transgender, non-binary, and intersex people to be housed and searched in a manner consistent with their gender identity and individual preference. Remember that time when prison was supposed to be a punishment for being probably not a great person in society, and now the government just does what you ask because, I don't know, like equality? Good for them for getting their individual preferences met. It does make me wonder about the female inmates' individual preference not to be raped. So in short, if they identify as a woman, they will be housed with women. And if their preference is to be housed with women, they will be housed with women. And let's
So yeah, so y'all hear the madness, right? Y'all hear the madness, right? And it gets so much worse than this. But like I said, I know, and y'all better watch. I mean, I'm glad y'all with me because you know somebody angry at YouTube or Facebook might take me off here after this. But it's crazy. You know, I'm gonna show y'all something else. Like I said, y'all just rock with your boy tonight because you need to see this, and we ain't gonna be that much long. But one of the things that's I told you is opening up the door for, they just haven't added the letter yet. At least not for what it's supposed to mean. Is this right here? It's pedophilia. All right. This is a recent story from June the 14th of this year. So we're talking about just a few days ago. It says queer ethics professor. That means a non-binary person. Now understand this non-binary crap, this queer stuff, where they don't want to call themselves a man or a woman, it's all bull crap. Because they having some man or some woman sex, I can guarantee you that. Because too many of them coming up pregnant and too many of them are molesting children. So they ain't having no non-binary sex. So how does a queer ethics professor call for pedophilia? You don't have a sex, but you want to have sex. That don't make sense. So look at this story here. Queer ethics professor calls for pedophilia to be destigmatized and taught in schools. Now I want you to notice, professor, what did I tell you? This ideology is where? It's in our institutions of learning. And primarily in the Western world. Thank you. I haven't heard you say y'all gonna put something on my books. Bless you. And if y'all want to, you can donate to the ministry. The ticker is going across the bottom of the screen because I don't know. I might need some sardines and some tuna and some peanut butter and crackers because they might try to run me up out of here after this. But I'll be back. But look at this. A so-called ethics professor from Norway. So this is Europe. America's nothing but the bastard daughter of Great Britain, which is the head of Europe. So this is, I mean, this is nothing but a European country across the Atlantic Ocean. A so-called ethics professor from Norway has claimed that pedophilia should be classed as an innate sexuality and taught in schools. So he's saying that a desire to have sex, and understand this whole thing is about sex. It's always about sex. He wanted to be taught as if pedophilia is natural. And he says, yes, really. Rita reports that old Martin Moen from Oslo Metropolitan University is calling for the destigmatization of pedos, claiming that the mental state of finding children sexually attractive is very common. Moen, a gay man who identifies as queer. You see how confusing this is? And I'm going to show y'all the trans people talking about how confusing the queer people are. Just to prove to you what I said earlier, that L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, and all the other letters don't all get along. Everybody sees things the same way, but they pressured, it seems almost by a handler, to make it look like they do, to keep them together as a cohesive group, to use them to keep somebody else in power that's pulling the strings. Democrats, but I ain't gonna say who it is because I don't know who it is. Democrats, but it could be anybody in power in government. Democrats, but I can't say. Moen, a gay man who identifies as queer, also claims that a significant percentage of high school students have an innate pedophilic sexual identity, something he equates with those who identify as LGBTQ+. When you done ran out of letters, I guess, or descriptions, you just throw the plus on there. Oh, are we finally adding the P now? What I've been saying. What color will the pedos have on the rainbow flag? I mean, it's just, good Lord, man. The report further notes that Professor Moen authored a paper back in 2015 titled The Ethics of Pedophilia, in which he asked how bad is pedophilia and in what ways and for what reasons is this bad? Now, for those of you all who want to take a look at this article, in fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post it in the chat because I'm not going to read this in its entirety, but I just wanted you to see this because this is an actual real paper that this guy wrote. You know, the ethics of pedophilia. As a matter of fact, I just clicked on it and it takes you right to it. It takes you right to it. Now, when I was looking at this, I said, you know, is this like one of those joke sites, you know, Zero Hedge? You know, but they look like they look to be a legitimate newspaper. Because I said, this sounds like this almost sounds too ridiculous to be true. You know, it almost sounds ridiculous to be true. So I had to go and take a look at this to see if this was like a satire site. Because, you know, sometimes you put stories out there and you say, well, you know, this is a satire site. But it's not a satire site, you know. And so what I found out was this. Matter of fact, let me show y'all something. So I went to their disclaimer page because also, in case you didn't know, there are a lot of American-owned companies that are not as American as you thought they were anymore, but they're owned by foreign entities, like our Federal Reserve, which all our money is printed from. That's a foreign entity. But here's the Zero Hedge, where the story came from, disclaimer page. And it says this, and I thought this was interesting. The website located at www.zerohedge.com is owned by who? Look at this. ABC Media, a Bulgarian company. So is ABC owned by a foreign entity? But in any event, all the media and everything that we seem to be seeing, it's showing this, yeah, what y'all said, Babylon, man. This global connection. and ABC is Disney. They all connected. So I don't know. So like I said, I don't know. I would have to probably look into that some more. But I thought it was very interesting. But here's something I want to show y'all, and then we're gonna shut it down. Because I was gonna show you this video from these non-binary people explaining what non-binary means. But I think instead how we're gonna close it out is I'm gonna show you a lesbian and a trans guy who's a biological woman that decided to want to be a man actually debunk or talk about how confusing the non-binary thing is, just to show y'all that all these lifestyles are nothing more than a ball of confusion, and they confusing each other. So let's go with that real quick, and then we're gonna shut it down. So women's sexuality.
Lovers, so today's topic is non-binary, and as a member of the LGBT community, this comes up in conversations an awful lot, and I have never fully expressed what I think of non-binary, if it's even a thing, if it isn't a thing. First of all, I don't think that anyone in the non-binary community even can fully explain what non-binary is. It seems like it's this made-up term that anybody can use for whatever reason they want.
I'm not male, I'm not female, I'm somewhere floating around in there.
Wait, so you're a girl? You're a trans woman, but you're also non-binary? How is that possible?
I don't get it. I think that non-binary is actually a new woke way of saying androgynous, just like wielding a sword of wokeness over the new term for validation purposes, for pronouns, for control.
Don't identify with having a gender because I found it really restrictive.
It gives me the freedom to express myself. If I wake up one day and I want to spike my hair and do punk rock makeup, I can do it.
So clothes, makeup, the way they speak, the way they act, whatever. And that's one of the reasons I haven't made a video on this topic. No one has really been able to come up with a concise definition for the term non-binary.
You define the labels don't define you. So you can bring your own definition to whatever label.
Yeah. And secondly, most of the people I know or that I have seen that identify as non-binary are A, very, very young, and B, tend to seem like they are doing it for a very, very political reason, almost like a fuck you to the patriarchy or fuck you for telling me how I should think and act.
Non-binary people don't owe you shit. They can use whatever pronouns they see fit. If they dress femme or mask, don't worry about it, because it's not your fucking bitch.
Which is funny because you're actually telling people and telling the world that you are taking yourself out of a box by putting yourself in another box. One of the questions I have for the non-binary community is there a difference between somebody that is actually non-binary and transsexual people? So transsexual meaning people that are born one sex and transitioning, even though you can't technically transition to another sex, but visually secondary sex characteristics trying to appear as...
Hold on. Now, did y'all hear that? She just said what gets you canceled by her own community. You can't transition to another sex. Let's rewind that. A member of the LGBT community just told you, just like the drag queens said, you can't transition. So even the thought or idea of being a trans woman, trans man, transformer, transistor, well, really you're just a trans resistor because you're rebelling against your biology according to how the Most High made you. She just said you can't transition. You're gonna always be a man. You're gonna always be a woman. Let me play that again.
People that are born one sex and transitioning, even though you can't technically transition to another sex, but visually secondary sex characteristics trying to appear as the sex they feel more comfortable as. If non-binary simply means just the way that somebody feels or acts, facts. Isn't everybody inherently non-binary? You know, like everybody has more masculine and feminine traits somewhere in their head or their body or whatever. Even if it's not all the time, even if it's just sometimes. It's not normal to be perfectly binary, right? Everybody is kind of on the spectrum. If we're talking about feeling, thinking, and presenting, because obviously we already know that sex is binary, sex meaning gametes, male, female, sperm, egg, simple, basic stuff. No, intersex is not a third sex. And we know that gender dysphoria is also a real thing. It has been scientifically credited, right? So what does non-binary...
So hold on, you heard us say that everybody's binary. That means you're one sex or the other. Gender dysphoria is a defect. It's not a normal condition and less than 1% of people deal with it. Let's continue.
Mean if it is a physical thing to some of these people. Like does that mean having partial gender dysphoria, like only having dysphoria on part of your body? And if that was the case, I could get behind that because it is scientifically backed and it would make sense to me that if somebody came to me and told me, listen, I'm non-binary, I feel if I was fully male, meaning like flat chest, testosterone driven body, producing sperm, having a penis, I wouldn't feel comfortable, and I don't feel comfortable fully as a female either. As far as the law goes, I think that would be very tricky. I think it's becoming increasingly difficult to figure out how to treat non-binary people in the world because a lot of things are sex segregated or gender segregated or socially sex segregated. As I just said, I think if it is physically and biologically and gender dysphoria based, I can get behind the idea of non-binary, but if it is just something as simple as not fitting gender stereotypes, I actually think that is an incredibly sexist idea. What do you guys think though? Do you think non-binary is a real thing? Why or why not? If it is a real thing or if it is something that you know could be a real thing, what do you think the definition of it should be? Yes, I am filming this on a different day because apparently I had a lot more to say than...
All right. So that's enough for her. Let's go to the next one. All right. Trans guy debunks non-binary ideology. So this is a trans person.
Non-binary is someone whose gender doesn't fall within the context of the binary that we set up in society.
It's part of a larger kind of goal of questioning these assumptions about gender and questioning why there only need to be two.
There's a million ways to be a man and a woman. That's why we don't need more than two genders. If the statement gender is created...
What? In my Little John voice. I know he didn't just say we only need two genders. And he trans, she trans, he trans. So I don't even know what it's called. Let's hear that again.
There's a million ways to be a man and a woman. That's why we don't need more than two genders. If the statement gender is created by society were to be a bad thing, why are the majority of people comfortable being a man and a woman?
It gives me the freedom to express myself. If I wake up one day and I want to spike my hair and do punk rock makeup, I can do it.
Isn't it offensive to say that if a man wears a dress or plays with makeup, that he's less of a man and he's not a man at all? Why do you need a new gender just because you like makeup? Can't real men like feminine stuff?
Every couple of decades, some designer decides that men's shorts are 5 inches shorter or 5 inches longer. In the 70s, if you look at what men were wearing, they were like Rockettes, like shorts were up to here, and now it's like, get it, down to the knee. Non-binary is freedom from that whole game. It's like, I don't care what the men's department at Marshall's suddenly has decided.
So here, what you have is a person expressing, I don't even know what to say, how to classify this. Is it like a lazy-mindedness or just this perverse idea that somehow they're bound by their biology? And they just want to flip it on and turn it off like it's a switch. And this guy's sitting up here looking like some kind of clown, pasty white face, like it's been makeup, and powdered and everything with these thin red lips, and trying to be as androgynous as possible. And it's clear that he's a man. It's also clear that the black guy with the hat on is a guy. I just said he was a guy, but he dressed up like a woman. And I want you to notice something, that a lot of this, a lot of these people, I don't think in most societies at any time in the past, we would have said that these were well-adjusted or mentally healthy people. It's pretty clear. I don't even need to get into the theological aspect, because theologically, religiously, yes, devils are at work. That's pretty clear. But just from a basic scientific philosophical perspective, without theology, these people are mentally unhealthy. When it's clear that you are a particular sex and you have decided you are not that sex, or you want to change that sex whenever you choose to just be no sex, something wrong. Your elevator don't go all the way upstairs. Your bell don't ring. Your wood is wet. And the thing about this is, we have politicians right now who are passing legislation to push this even more. Joe Biden just signed, for no reason, just created executive orders for this community. And then the other thing is, Pride Month, before you started adding all these letters, how did transsexuals and queers become the face of Pride Month? You don't even hardly hear the word lesbian, gay, and bisexual no more. Now it's all about trans, non-binary, pansexual. I don't even know what the hell pansexual is. They just make up terms. Cis man, cis woman. Who is coming up with these terms? It's these folks that want to redefine everything. Like my cousin Charles pointed out in the chat, they even co-opted, I told you they co-opted everything. The word woke. Black folks started using stay woke and all these other terms as a means of being conscious about your surroundings, your culture, and things that pertain to being Black. But what happened, and this always happens, this is why I use that quote from Malcolm X about the white liberal. When white liberals join Black causes, they destroy them, because they co-opt them and they come in and they take over. The white liberal is not your friend, Black folks. They are not your friend. And I'm not pushing the Republican Party or conservatism, but we are conservative people, especially if you claim to believe in the Most High. The values being pushed by the liberal left, by the Democratic Party, these are not your values. How you gonna let somebody like old Jim Crow Joe tell you what to do, and Kamala, who don't even have no kids, try to tell you what to do with your kids? And all these other politicians that we keep reelecting and putting in office, for what? This is what they're pushing on you. Some of us don't vote. Some of us do vote. I do vote. And the reason why I vote is because if I don't, stuff like this is going to take over. Evil triumphs when good does nothing. And yes, sometimes we stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to choices, but you got to learn how to take a side and make a choice somewhere, or a choice going to be made for you. Now, I ain't telling you what to do, but I'm telling you to pray about it. Because you can't just sit back and rant about it and do nothing. You have to organize in your communities, find out who on your city council, who are in these schools. You're going to have to do something. You can't just sit down and pray in the corner and wait for the Lord to come and take you to the sweet by and by. We got to occupy until he comes. There's a war going on out here. And I ain't talking about the one in Ukraine, but there's a war for the souls of this world and for the souls of men and women who are being lost on a regular daily basis. And we've been commissioned to go into all the world and preach to every creature this good news that the kingdom is now, and that the Messiah has come and shall return. We cannot stand idly by, thinking that these things won't affect us, or else we're going to end up like Esther when Mordecai told her, don't you sit up in that palace thinking you safe and do nothing while everybody else suffers, because you've been brought to the kingdom for such a time as this. You've been awakened, Israel, for such a time as this. You've been brought back to yourself for such a time as this. You've been called and commissioned for such a time as this. You're going to have to educate yourself on your enemy. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, know yourself, know your enemy, and you'll be victorious in 100 battles. You'll never be defeated. And that's why this stuff got to be exposed, man. But we got to do more than pray. We're going to have to be like ancient Israel when they rebuilt Jerusalem. One built the wall with one hand and had a sword in the other hand. That the high praises of God be in your mouth and a sword in your hand is what the psalmist said. Can't sit idly by and let this stuff happen.
That like men need to wear. I'm gonna go for what makes me feel more authentic.
So fashion trends, they define your gender. So the length of your shorts will define if you're a man or a woman. Clothing stores, they don't define your gender. That's on you. They sell clothes. They just want to make some money. It's all about the money.
The hardest thing about coming out at 17 is no one believes you. Everyone is like, wow, that's a really cute phase you're having.
Even though.
Now, this non-binary obvious woman said they came out, but what did they come out as? They non-binary. You know what I mean? What did they come out as? Now, I'm showing y'all this because trans guy supposedly debunks non-binary ideology, but within her own, his, whatever, I'm telling you, it's so confusing. Attempt at debunking them, they're also debunking themselves. Because if you listen, she said, clothes don't determine your gender, you do. No, you don't. Yah does. It's already been determined for you. Her confusion is that she was born a she, but chose to be a he. So you see how this very poison ideology backfires on itself? This is what happens. And so I wanted to show y'all that last video just so that you could see for yourself. And I'm telling you, the whole thing really all adds to one thing. All this gender confusion, I'm going to show you what it all leads to. This right here. This right here. Go to Menendez, Baphomet, Satan. The androgynous, genderless one. Head of a goat, breast of a woman, shoulders and arms and the rest of the body of a man with wings. That's what you see. That's the image they're projecting. Not the image and likeness of the Most High, but of the Most Lie, the devil. This is that trans monster that's causing all this transmania, this confusion, this chaos. That's what you see. Is that right there? That's the mascot of the transgender community. All right? That's what you see. And we have clear scripture from beginning to end that tells us what we're not to get involved with. And it don't even take that long to know it. It just takes 2 seconds. Leviticus 18:22, you shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Point blank, plain and simple. Going to a doctor and changing your sex, don't change this commandment. You still what you were before they cut it off and threw it away, or tucked it under, or whatever they did with it, or added it to you. And you're going to always be that. You're going to always be that. Romans chapter 1, verse 16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, the good news, for it is the power of Yah for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of Yah is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. You can't live by feelings. It's faith over feelings. For the wrath of Yah is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about Yah is plain. Now look, it's plain that this stuff is wrong. But men will look the truth in the face and deny it. It says, because Yah has shown it to them for his invisible attributes. In other words, the things you can't see are witnessed or testified of by the things you can see. Look at the scripture. Namely, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. There's no excuse. Now, I know we got family members and different ones that are into these various lifestyles and things of this sort, and you can love people and tolerate them without accepting them. But you're going to have to stand up for what's right. I don't care if it's your mama, your daddy, your sibling, your child. The scripture says that the truth is going to bring a sword of division, even within our own households. How committed to this truth are you going to be? Because I can tell you this, the people who decide to go this opposite direction into this transmania either already are reprobates or are just one step away from becoming that way, because they are rejecting the Most High's design. The whole homosexual sphere, loving the same sex, is a form of idolatry and the highest degree of narcissism. You are so in love with yourself, you can only love someone else who is like yourself. So you're projecting onto another individual with the same sexual body parts as you. Self-worship. And then you got those who claim to believe in God, but let me show you what they do according to the scripture. Because God is so embedded and imprinted on human DNA that they struggle in conflict. Because they know they're in rebellion, yet they're trying to force themselves to believe that the Most High accepts them the way that they are, and that's not the case. The gospel doesn't come to accept us as we are. It comes to change us to what we ought to be. It doesn't ride with the culture. It challenges the culture to change. It doesn't accept your mess. It corrects your mess. It doesn't overlook your sin. No, it looks at your sin and makes you clean it up by calling on the name of the Most High, who got the power to clean you up. Let's read, and then we're going to exit stage left. For although they knew Yah, they did not honor him as Yah or God and give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although that professor we saw, claiming to be wise, they became fools. You wonder why this lifestyle is being promoted primarily in higher institutions of higher education. Educated fools breaking the laws, the Most High's rules, and exchange the glory, look at this, of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. People, no, can't nobody, only God can judge me. I can judge you too, because he told us to judge righteous judgment. It's just that when he judges you, that's final. If I'm judging you, there's still grace and mercy for you. Therefore, God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. When he gives you up, this is when you become reprobate. Now you turn to yourself as your own God, because you no longer have the God conscious leading you. You're leading yourself. And you never lead yourself the right direction. It's always going in the wrong direction. In other words, this story is going to end bad. So it says, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, look at it. God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For the women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. Lesbianism. And though I love and respect some people who are lesbian, and some who are gay, and some who are bi, and some of these freaks out here that are tri. Yeah, we got some trisexuals. They'll try anything. Though I may love you, I do not accept your standard of living because it is contrary to my moral compass and, most importantly, to the word of the Most High and his will. My desire and hope for you is that you would repent. And so I will lovingly address you, but I will firmly stand on the truth without compromise. Because the alternative is that I compromise with you and pacify you, and then I'm accountable for your blood, and I won't do it. Brother or sister that may be listening to this and not participating in the chat, if you are leading an alternative lifestyle that's contrary to the will of the Most High, I beg you, I plead with you to turn to Yeshua HaMashiach, aka Jesus Christ, from that sin and commit your way to him. There's mercy for you. There's grace for you in abundance. But if you continue down the path that you're on, there's only judgment and condemnation and eternal hellfire. And your feelings won't rescue or save you, and your gender or sex or sexual identity or orientation will make no difference in the lake of fire. You don't want to be given up. Verse 27, and the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Think about that. Go back to the book of Genesis. Lot had 2 son-in-laws and 2 daughters who were virgins. How did he have son-in-laws married to his daughters and his daughters were still virgins? Something to think about. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind or reprobate mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. See, because when you go into this particular area of perversion, it opens you up to everything else as well. Because all sin sends you to the same place. But look at the rebellion out of the alphabet community. They're going to force your conformity, but they're going to rebel and reject even their own biology. Foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. And then the allies are even worse than the people who are actually in the lifestyle. And I got families members that are staunch allies that are more gung-ho for the lifestyle than the people who participate in it. And they're not going to escape either. Like I told you, all them folks smiling at that little boy, pedophiles. They may not have never molested a child in their life, but the fact that they can agree with what is being done to these children and clap and smile and cheer it on makes them just as guilty. Now listen to what the scripture says. Though they know God's decrees that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. So those who also approve of the lifestyle are just as guilty as those who practice the lifestyle. There is no escape. I don't care if you're one of my siblings or one of my loved ones, one of my children, grandchildren, niece, nephew, godchildren, aunts, uncles, or whomever. This is the book. And a charge to keep I have and a God to glorify. I got one soul to save, and that's mine. But I have a job as a messenger to give you the truth so that you can save yourself from this untoward generation. So, beloved, we have done quite a bit here tonight. It's been some time since I've been with you, but I won't stay away so long this next time. And we'll see what happens after this. You know, this video may get demonetized, so y'all better record it, download it while you can. But in any event, the truth must go forward, and we got to take a stand. We got to take a stand. We got to pray. We got to fast. We got to ask for wisdom. We got to be strong in the word, and we got to take a stand. And we got to strengthen our communities and one another. Amen. So with all that being said, I'm going to bring this to a close. I'm not going to pontificate any more than I already have. All right. But as I say always, we're not always right and others aren't always wrong. And as the scriptures say in St. John chapter 5, verse 39, the words of Yeshua himself, he said, search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. So it's all about him. Ultimately, we want to align with his will. We want to live according to his word, not our feelings, but by faith in his word, trusting in his truth. And then Acts chapter 17, verse number 11 reminds us of keeping great study habits so that we don't fall victim to the deception of the enemy. And it says, now these Jews were more noble than those in Thessalonica. They received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures daily. So it gives us the attitude that we're supposed to have that would cause us to be recognized as noble, king's kids, regal people, princess and princesses, holy priesthood, royal priesthood. All right. Receiving the word with eagerness and excitement and exuberance and expectation, and then examining the scriptures, having good daily study habits, examining the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. So with all that being said, beloved, this brings us to a close. And I love you with the love of the Most High, because truly you are the apple of his eye. And I pray nothing but the best for the blessed. So until the next time, shalom.